Hi, yes, running a little bit late, and I apologize for that. We had a slight technology issue.
Coffee. I spilled the coffee.
Yeah, right. Thanks a lot, Stan.
Yeah.
We had a slight technology issue this morning, and I apologize for that, but it's good. It's hilarious when I tell you, because nobody else in the world will ever know, but for the three of us in this room, one button caused that entire disaster. And I don't know who hit the button. So that's the problem, right? Like, I want to blame Griffin, but I don't know that.
I know what.
You were never near the board. So it's one of the two of us. And it could have been either one of us. That's the thing, because we were both in there sort of frantically,
You know how in baseball they say the ball always finds the weak link?
Yes.
Well,
You think that...
well, one day when he shows up...
Ooh, that's true.
Showed up at like 9:59
He kind of pulled a
and
non-timer this morning. He kind of pulled a... All right.
I think the world...
That's
a different world.
It's weird, because that's not what you said.
Different world.
That's not what you said last night. Good morning. It is Glenn Clark Radio. Stan the Fan Charles is here. And we do have a very busy show ahead of us, so I was hoping to use this first segment to really dive in. And we're already running a little bit late. Coming up in a few minutes, Darren O'Day is going to join us. Of course, we just had Darren on a couple weeks ago to talk about his retirement. I remember him saying, I'm going to be doing some broadcasting this year, but he couldn't tell us anything then. And we both said afterwards, oh, he's going to be great.
Yeah.
Like, he's going to be excellent. As it turns out, that team is the Atlanta Braves, who the Baltimore Orioles play this weekend. So we're going to talk to him about that on today's show. Speaking of the Braves, legendary former Brave Andruw Jones is going to check in a little bit later on. A lot of national TV this weekend for the Orioles. Tomorrow night they're on Fox. Sunday morning, 11:30 a.m. So don't sleep in.
Who's on?
The Orioles are on
the
Fox.
11:30?
No, and then on Sunday, they're the 11:30 a.m. game.
Oh, my goodness. I'm
Which-
glad you mentioned that.
Yeah,
I didn't
which
know
is, for whatever reason this week, because normally that's just a Peacock game.
that. Right.
This week it's on NBC. So you can watch it on your television this week.
Is it also going to be on Peacock?
Will also be on Peacock, yes. But this one specifically, and I don't know why this one is on NBC.
Chuck Todd get fired?
I don't. That's a fair question. I don't know the answer, and you never know who's getting fired these days. But part of that broadcast, it's Matt Vasgersian, Ben McDonald, and Andruw Jones is the crew for that game, and the great Andruw Jones will join us a little bit later on in the program. Also today, we'll check in with our buddy Bo Smolka. Ravens had their press conference yesterday announcing or I guess not announcing, but celebrating the Lamar Jackson extension. We'll talk to him about that and the fallout from the NFL draft and the signing of Rock Ya-Sin this week. And on top of all of that, we will meet Jordan Geronimo, the transfer you guys all wanted at the University of Maryland, the guy you were asking for. Get the guy from the Big Ten. Well, they got him. Jordan Geronimo from Indiana is coming to play basketball at Maryland, and we're going to meet him a little bit later on. Stan the Fan is here. Stan,
Yes, sir.
I present you. The Orioles did take 2 out of 3 in Kansas City this week.
Yes.
Had them all the way yesterday. Never in doubt.
Never in doubt.
Never in doubt. Had them all the way.
Except the 7th, 8th, and 9th.
Yes, it was very much in doubt. There is a lot of consternation about the struggles of Orioles pitching this week against the moribund Kansas City Royals, knowing the Atlanta Braves, Tampa Bay Rays, Pittsburgh Pirates, who have been a revelation. Beyond that, even other
You
good
start
lineups.
to play the American League East
Yep.
again. Yeah.
Knowing that's ahead, there is concern about what the pitching did this week. How concerned are you about what's ahead, given the performance of Orioles pitching this week?
Well, I'm concerned. There's no question about it, because I think they've got something pretty good going on the offensive side of things.
No
right
question.
now.
Other than 2 nights ago.
Although Zach Greinke
Yeah.
had a great 44-pitch outing. Talk about a consistency of managing. Matt Quintino.
Yeah.
Quintino.
Uh-huh.
How do you
Hang on a
pronounce
second.
his
I'll
name?
tell you.
Quarantino.
I believe it's Quattraro. Yeah.
Matt Quattraro. Takes Zach Greinke out. Manager's decision after 5 shutout innings with the lead, and turned it over his bullpen. And I get that on one level. When you have a pitcher pitching as poorly as Zach Greinke has this year to date, you get greedy, like saying, hey, he's pitching a great game. I'll take 5 shutout innings out of him. But why the next day, when Jordan Lyles is getting his brains beat in, did he stay in for 5 innings?
In fairness, it ends up looking kind of genius because he settles down for a second after giving up 8 runs.
Exactly.
Has a couple of good innings, and they end up finding their way back into the baseball game. But I understand your point. Yeah. It's certainly absurd. Back to
back to your question. The Orioles starting pitching, we've seen enough inconsistency out of Dean Kramer, Cobb Radish, and Grayson Rodriguez, and now Kyle Gibson, who hasn't had 2 good.
Well, and look, Tyler Wells had been their best pitcher, but clearly was not good on Tuesday.
Right. No, he pitched.
He pitched the opener of the series.
Right, he pitched pretty good Tuesday.
He was okay. Yeah. I mean, he was.
I'll take that, Tyler Wells. I think also, Glenn, we ran into a little bit of. That expression, regression to the mean. I don't know what it's called when it goes, a team positively responds to their current state. Progression to the mean.
Sure.
But the Kansas City Royals are offensively not a great ball club, but they're not as dismal as they've been. And we ran into, I think, a little bit of entering the twilight zone where they reach some progression to their mean.
So you think this is an anomaly more than it's a...
I still think they are lacking a true number 1 starter.
There's no doubt about that.
And I think the candidates out there, ironically, are ex-Orioles. The top 2 candidates that I think of are both on teams that aren't going to contend this year. One of them is the Detroit Tigers, Eduardo Rodriguez, and wouldn't it be kind of fitting if he comes back?
Never actually made it as an Oriole the first time,
but comes back to help the team. He is pitching at an elite level right now. And the guy that they spent on the last year that Peter was really, actually John had kind of taken over the reins. They brought Alex Cobb in.
Who was a guy we wanted so badly.
Yeah,
we were so on board with Alex Cobb. Yeah,
but Alex Cobb has now been healthy for the better part of last year, the second half, and this year he is pitching like a wonderkin, and I think he's signed only through this year, I believe. I think he's making $14 million. So if you put together a package of 2 or 3 prospects and you were committed to paying Alex Cobb what he's going to be worth if he does truly come in and help you out, be interesting. But they need a number 1 starter, not a designated number 1 starter.
Right, not a guy that you're saying is your number 1 starter because you don't have one.
He's got a team option at the end of this year.
Okay.
Alex Cobb,
yeah.
which would that would be better. Yes, that would be because it's tough right now to be giving away. It's hard to sell yourself on this team winning a World Series this year.
Correct.
So it's tough to be giving away prospects for a rental piece because you don't think it's going to be the difference in winning a championship. But you could start to squint and say, hey, if you're willing to make a couple more moves, that if you take a jump this year, that next year you could start to move into that territory and you could add in. You're talking about adding in Colton Cowser to the mix. You're talking about maybe adding in Heston Kjerstad to the mix by that point. And as crazy as it sounds, by next summer, if you're in the throes of a real race and Jackson Holliday continues to progress at the route that he's progressing, it's not absurd to think that you could even push that button by next summer. So even a 2-year guy, you can squint and say it's worth paying a price for that guy because there might be a chance.
And that's really what Houston did when they acquired,
Verlander to begin with. Yep.
And they had made the great trade getting Garrett Cole from the Pirates. But the interesting player to me, the more interesting player is probably Eduardo Rodriguez, who signed that 5-year contract with Detroit. But unfortunately for the Orioles' sake, and we definitely would have a dance partner there. Detroit's farm system is not good. So if they could pick up 2 or 3 pieces and maybe the Orioles get Rodriguez and I'm just throwing out like Matt Verling or something gets thrown back. But the problem is that Eduardo Rodriguez has an opt-out after this year, and the Orioles aren't going to be anxious to give up 2 or 3 prospects in a trade for a half a season of Eduardo Rodriguez. Now, what could you do? You probably could go to Rodriguez and not tear the entire contract up and say, hey, we'll pay you $25 million a year for the remaining 3 years. But maybe you could offer $7-8 $8-9 million to buy out his option, his opt-out. So it makes the contract more like a $20 million contract per year for the next 3 years.
Let me pose this, because those things, probably none of that is going to happen until at the earliest, June.
Yeah, late June.
Something like that. In the meantime,
Yeah.
they're going to let Dean Kramer start the night in Atlanta, which is one of the most eternal pitching mismatch. This almost smells like reverse lock, right? Like when you look at this match, it almost.
So is tomorrow night.
Yeah,
Spencer
it is.
Strider
100%,
against Kyle Bradish.
right?
Yeah.
I said on Sunday I thought that should have been about it for Dean Kramer at this point after Saturday night. That you say it's time to let somebody else have a shot. Which isn't casting aside Dean Kramer. It's saying the games are too important right now.
Right.
Somebody else has to move into that role, and we have to see if that guy can help us every fifth day. And if Dean Kramer can get back to doing the things they did a year ago, we'll probably need a pitcher again at some point.
Look, we can't control what Tampa Bay does until we play them.
That's fact.
Okay. But right now, it's beginning to look like Tampa Bay is going to do the Detroit Tiger thing from 1984.
Just kind of run away, yeah.
Run away and hide. But if you look at, there are 2 wild cards in the American League, and anything can happen in a short series, as we saw with the Florida Panthers playing
That's right,
Bruins,
the Boston Bruins,
right? Anything can happen. There are 2 wild cards, and we certainly are really in the hunt for one of those, nobody else. Houston isn't running away with their division. In fact, Texas is in first place. Houston is the Angels are in second place right now.
Right.
Boy, if the playoffs started tomorrow, it'd be a whole new ball game.
Right.
But we figure we're going to be good enough to be in the hunt for a wild card.
I just want to make sure it's 3 wild cards now. Yeah,
Yes.
It's 3 wild cards now. It's 3 wild cards.
3 division
now.
winners,
Yeah,
3 wild cards.
It's 3 wild cards now in the MLB.
Starting
playoffs.
this year?
I think it started last year.
Started
right?
last year,
Yeah,
yeah.
it started last year with
Really?
3 wild cards.
Yeah.
Yes.
I got to be
So-
honest.
But there are still people that believe that all 3 could come from the AL
Right.
East. Like
No-
it's
no-
still,
yeah.
especially because you don't have the same unbalanced schedules this year.
Yeah.
But the point being, to me, I think that you have to. I get that you want to point out what Dean Kramer was from a year ago, and I get it. And I'm not trying to say just toss him in the. This is not an Austin Voth situation where he's out of options.
Right.
This to me is you get a month. If in a month you're not helping, you're not benefiting the team, then you don't just get to keep getting Stroud out there every 5th day in hopes of finding that guy. And I get it. You're not overwhelmed by what your alternatives would be. It would be the DL Hall experiment and saying, hey, look.
Or Cole Irvin.
Cole Irvin's been.
Yeah, he hasn't been.
He had
great
He had one good start last time out, but he's been rough. Bruce Zimmerman has actually pitched well at
Right.
AAA this season, and the guy that's pitched the best of all of them, but
Drew
it seems aggressive, right? It seems like it's probably too quick to go to Drew Rom, and I think that you'd be better served trying to get an answer, say, on DL Hall. Like you decided you needed to do the experiment, you stretched him out. There's a part of me that it's like, hey, at some point it becomes Esser get off the pot.
Yeah.
Like, let's go figure out if he's going to help you as a starter, because if not, let's get on with the next step of this process and finding him a role in the bullpen and moving forward from that. To me, I think this is kind of last call for Dean Kramer. To me, it would have already been last call for Dean Kramer, but tonight to me would be last call for Dean Kramer. If it's a mess again, I think it's time to do something different.
Boy, I think back to those 2 games in Houston last year where Kramer and Bradish were just absolutely brilliant. I'm not ready to toss him aside yet. You're not saying you'd toss him aside.
No, I'd say
he's got an option. But I would give them both a little bit more rope,
Until when? What would be your...
Probably another, including this start, probably 2 more starts after that.
Okay.
Maybe. Depending. If it's like an inning and third, 7 runs, I'm sort of checking into your camp. But if he pitches 6 innings or 5 2/3 and gives up 4 runs, he hasn't done his job, but he hasn't really been awful.
Okay. You say he's not wearing – that's the point that Rob brought up the other day. He's not bringing down the rest of the rotation, the rest of the staff in the process.
Right. Because
he at least gives you some innings and he at least gets you through competitively. I can understand the argument. boy, the games are so important right now to me that it's tough to stomach someone who hasn't been helpful going out there again and just hoping for a better result.
It's always very interesting when you have one of these teams gets off to this kind of start like Tampa right now, because we kept saying,
nuts.
Well, yeah, they haven't played anybody.
Well,
now they played Houston and Pittsburgh, and they won 5 out of 6.
They're real. There's no debating what Tampa is. They are real. All right, Stan the Fan Charles. It is a Friday edition of the program. Today's show is also brought to you by your local Toyota dealer and buyatoyota.com. The Toyota Tacoma comes in a range of models and trim lines, so you can choose the perfect Tacoma to reflect your unique personality and driving habits. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Tacomas from your local Toyota dealer today. We talked to our next guest just a couple of weeks ago after he had made it official that he was retiring. And I remember him telling us, I'm going to dip my toes into broadcasting this year. And he couldn't tell us what it was because it wasn't official yet. And I remember Stan and I both saying at that point, oh, he's going to be good. Like, he's going to be really good at this. And it turns out that team is the Atlanta Braves that he's dipping his toes into the broadcasting waters with this season after he spent last season with them. He is an Orioles legend. It's a pleasure to welcome back to the program the great Darren O'Day, who's with us now here on GCR. Darren, it's Glenn and Stan back in Baltimore. It's great to catch up again, man. Thank you so much for taking the time for us this morning.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me on.
It's great to catch up with you, man. Okay, so I know you haven't done a ton yet. I know you did a few games. Have you enjoyed it? Did it sort of kind of quench your feeling for baseball a little bit? Did you find yourself saying, no, this is lame. I would rather be throwing a ball, or I can't do that. What was your feeling like doing games?
Yeah, it was. I enjoyed it more than I ever thought I would. The games, they go by so fast when you're having fun, and I did 6 games with Ben Ingram on the Braves radio network, and he's such a pro. My respect for play-by-play radio guys has really grown after working with him, and he made it easy on me, and we just had fun and screwed around quite a bit, which is my forte. So we had a good time. We gave the fans the baseball they needed and a couple laughs in between.
Darren, I'm wondering, you use the phrase that the games go by so fast when you're having fun, but they're going by fast
all the games
now.
Are going by fast
they're all
now.
going by fast. Is there time?
Well, I don't know.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
The O's played a 3.5-hour game yesterday.
I know.
This feels like the days of old.
Yes, it does. I'm wondering, you're not that experienced at the broadcasting thing. Is there time to get in what you feel like you need to get in with how fast the game moves today?
It's definitely a challenge. The pitch clock has been fantastic overall. I'm really enjoying watching the pace of baseball. But as a radio guy, the fans can't see the action, so you have to make sure the play-by-play guy gets in every 20 seconds to call the play. So I've gotten better at telling stories or explaining things, in bits and pieces in between the pitches. But it's been a fun adjustment, a lot of learning. But I've found that I love talking about baseball. I'm actually doing some of the TV game tonight with the O's and Braves. I'm doing it on the Braves network.
Awesome. That is very, very cool, man. Of course, although these are completely different guys, obviously. Like, I was thinking about it. I don't even know that you know any of these guys at this point in Baltimore.
Yeah. Santander was there with me.
Okay, that's true, yeah.
We used to call him Midnight Tony because the guy would wear his sunglasses any time of day. Hayes, Mountcastle, Mullins, all those guys were there. So
I guess that, okay.
I'm looking forward to seeing them today at batting practice.
That's awesome.
Catch up a little bit.
That's awesome, man. Darren O'Day is with us here on GCR. Darren, I want to ask you about the Braves because, they're good, obviously. Stan and I were joking right now. It seems like some of the greatest pitching mismatches of all time these first couple of days. But Max Fried is pitching to a .45 ERA, which every time I look at that, I keep thinking to myself, that can't be real. There's no way that's possible. What in the world is going on with that dude? We knew he was good. This is otherworldly at this point.
Yeah. Yeah, the O's are in for a good test this weekend. They're facing the 3 guys in the Braves rotation that are pitching the best. And Max Fried he's a pretty special guy. He could very easily just rest on his laurels and say, I'm a Cy Young candidate every year I go out there. But every year he goes and he works on something. He tries to, refine his curveball, he learns a new changeup grip. And this year he changed the shape of his slider a little bit. And he changed some things in his diet, and he feels better than ever. So, the O's have obviously off to a hot start with all these young guys coming up and just contributing right away. But this weekend will be a good test to kind of find out, where they fall against one of the best teams in the National League.
Darren, I wanted to ask you about Max Fried. The Braves do such a great job at signing their own. Do you have a sense of whether they clearly are going to want to sign Fried, but have they missed a window to get him signed to a somewhat sane contract, which the Braves seem to like sane contracts?
Yeah, I personally, if I had to, bet a toe or a finger, I don't think Max is going to re-sign with the Braves. Not because of anything Max has told me.
Right.
It's just the organizational philosophy. If you look at all their long-term contracts, they're all mostly position players.
Yep.
Obviously, Strider was an exception. But Max, I think in the past they've tried to work something out. Max knows his value, and I just don't know if the Braves are comfortable going to a number that is going to get Max to stay here. And the Braves are in a good spot. Here in the Southeast, it's warm. People can live here year-round. Atlanta's actually a great city. It's where I call home now. So the Braves have a lot of things going on for them that makes players want to stay here for a long time. So, only Max knows what he's going to do, but I personally can't see him staying.
Okay.
Darren O'Day is with us here on GCR, Orioles Braves this weekend. Darren, you bring that up. I mean, it's jealousy around baseball, right? And you can kind of touch on it because, as you said, you're feeling it. You decided to make it home. How is it happening, and how much is it sort of proving to be like the new right way of doing business, what the Braves have done? And I know it's not easy to convince everybody to play for, maybe a little bit lesser, as Stan pointed out, sane deals that they've been offering. But how has it worked that the Braves have made this their business model, and is it proving to be for all other teams, for teams like the Orioles who are in the infancy, this is the model that you should be attempting to replicate as you try to build a winner?
Yeah, I think so. Baltimore fans know better than anything that baseball success goes in cycles, right? There's windows. When I got there, the team was rebuilding, and we brought in some veterans, and we started winning. We had all this young talent, and we were good for 4 or 5 years. And then, talent gets expensive, and you trade away your farm system at the deadline and all that stuff to improve your postseason chances. Well, I think what the Braves figured out is they have a great organization here. The guys love playing here because it's kind of the right size market. It's not too big. It's not too small. The media is not too tough. And so they said, instead of us just having a 3 or 4 year window, let's go ahead and take a little bit of risk and lock these guys up long term. And we know we can extend our window out to 6 to 8 years and continue to develop their farm system while they're still winning, which it's going to be an interesting experiment to see how many other teams follow suit. The Orioles are coming up on a period where all these young guys that they've done a great job drafting and developing, if they keep playing like they are, they're going to get pretty expensive pretty quick.
Adley Rutschman might already be too expensive. That's the problem. He might already be at the point where he's a $200+ million guy, and we've not even seen him for a full year yet at this point. That's how good he is.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah, I really, Mark, people don't appreciate catchers enough. A good catcher that can call a game and frame and throw and hit and lead your team changes the entire persona on the team. He takes so much pressure off the pitchers. He's obviously a great hitter for the position as well, and from what I've heard, a good person and a good leader. So, I know when I was in Baltimore and we had Wieters and we knew who was going to be back there every day and we knew he was going to be in a lineup, it was just like, okay, I know. He knows where I'm at and what I'm throwing well, and he knows these hitters because he's back there all the time, and he's a smart guy. It makes it easier to do your job, and I think that's what Adley's doing for the O's now.
Darren, I'm just curious, how closely are you watching other teams right now as a broadcaster? You got to see, I'm sure, the Mets play. And my question really goes back to April 21st. They were 14-7. Since that time, and whatchamacallit, Scherzer got suspended 2 days prior to that or something like that. They've gone 2-9. Now, you know Buck Showalter as well as anybody, and I know you're a big fan of his. This seems like a nightmare scenario for Buck to navigate. Do you think he'll navigate through this successfully?
I think, well, going back a little bit before this year, I think that the perfect hire for that job was Buck Showalter because he can handle those personalities and those big salaries and in the market and the expectations. So if anybody can handle this, I think it's Buck. It's tough when you have, we had a year in Baltimore where we had all this talent, but we just weren't performing. It's tough to put your finger on why, but I know that New York team is going to come back and they're going to be good. There's just too much talent. And it also, when Scherzer's out, you're playing a man short on your pitching staff, which affects everybody. We went through that with Brian Mattis for 6 games, and we only had 6 guys in our bullpen for almost a week, and it's just it puts a lot of stress on everybody else in the lineup, and you're going to have a lot of roster moves, a lot of turnover. And then the Mets have had a bunch of rainouts and doubleheaders. It's just tough to do shorthanded.
Darren, can I ask you about, because Stan and I were just talking before you came on, the Orioles, for as well as things have gone, the starting pitching has been troublesome. They're probably going to need to try to acquire someone before the deadline. And in the moment, there's, the guy that struggled the most, which is hard to point out because they've all struggled, is Dean Kramer, who pitched really well a year ago. I wonder what this is like. Can you take me inside a team and you're winning and things are going well and you're in the bullpen and you're doing your job, which, of course, you always did. Like, what's the conversation like when someone, you're a month in and it's just not been working and you're a good baseball team? Do you start saying to somebody, hey, are we going to keep doing this every 5th day? Like, how does this affect the team when you're good and there's one particular starter that's struggling so much, and it does cause, your bullpen to be taxed a little bit more?
Yeah, starting pitching, again, it's the hardest thing to develop, and for me, it's probably the most important position on the team because they changed the scope of the game for everybody else. And even in my time in Baltimore, we had some good starting rotations and we had some weaker ones. And when you're not hitting and you're down 2 or 3 runs in the first inning, it just feels like, oh man, here we go again. But the way the Orioles are hitting right now, I don't think they're out of any game. So I think, with the offensive firepower the O's have, I don't think they're getting too worried about it because they always feel like they're in the game, because they can always put some runs on the board. So you just kind of know what you have to work with. And I know that the O's have, a rich minor league system. And one of those guys, if one of the starting 5 just doesn't perform, they're going to get replaced because the team has expectations now. It's not like the Orioles of 2 or 3 years ago where we're just trying to develop players and get guys big league reps. Now we're trying to win games and challenge the big boys of the East.
We refer to that era as the Rio Ruiz era.
Poor Rio. Poor Rio. It's
nice
not
guy.
no doubt.
Nice
All right.
He's a nice guy.
Darren, actually, I think we might be able to solve a problem for the Braves. Now, hear me out on this one. You said they're probably not going to be able to sign Fried, right? So how about we send you Kramer for Fried, since you can't sign him anyway, right? And we'll just take him off the hands, and that way you don't have to worry about it. And Kramer's around for a little bit longer, and the guys down there are pretty good at getting the best out of somebody.
How do you think that conversation would
go
if you brought that up
for Kramer?
If you
for
brought
free,
that
right?
up for us with Alex.
You throw me in some crab cakes, I'd have to consider it. But,
probably not going to work out.
I don't know if they're going to go for that.
Probably not going to work out that way. Darren O'Day.
They've just done a great job of, like I said, extending that winning window, and I think you'll see other teams sort of follow suit to kind of lock guys up early a little bit. It's pretty neat to watch.
Hey, Darren, I know what a big fan you are of Bucks, but now you've got to play for Brian Snitker and observe him. What is his secret sauce? Why does he get so much out of that team?
I think Snit's greatest quality is just his steadiness.
Mm-hmm.
He's an old school approach. He's a Bobby Cox disciple.
Yep.
Not quite as fiery as Bobby Cox, but he's just the same guy every day. When you need a little pick me up, he'll give you a little pick me up. But he really does a good job of just keeping the ship on course and managing where he needs to, and then letting the players play. Every year the Braves have 1 or 2 guys that play over 160 games, and he believes in his guys. So when you have the caliber of players that he has and you put them out there 160 times a year, you're going to do pretty well. But he does a great job of just kind of steering the ship.
Darren, we look forward. I know this weekend it's down in Atlanta. Hopefully at some point in the next couple of years, it's an assignment that brings you back up here to Baltimore. And I know the Orioles are looking at your era of guys and trying to start getting you guys into the Orioles Hall of Fame as well, because those will be special weekends to celebrate that era of Orioles baseball. Of course, Orioles-Braves this weekend. Darren's doing TV down in Atlanta. At DOday56 on Twitter is how you can follow him. Darren, always enjoy the conversation, man. Thank you for taking the time for us this morning.
All right. Yeah, guys, love it. Love talking baseball. So it'll be a fun weekend. I can't wait to see what happens.
Great to catch up. Great to catch up.
Darren O'Day with us here on GCR, of course, former Orioles pitcher, now doing radio and TV in Atlanta.
I think he's going to like going to Alex with that offer.
I think you walk in and you say, look,
Kramer.
We're going to solve this problem for you.
Yeah.
You can't
can't
sign
sign
Fried,
Fried,
right? So let's.
And you can keep him, if he brings it up now, you can say, and you keep him another month.
Yeah, sure.
You
Okay,
know.
yeah, I think we can live with that. One more month, and then we do the swap, right? And then we make it. I don't know if it's going to work out. I don't know.
I mean, if they
if
can
that
get
one's
it done
gonna
tonight,
work.
that'd be great.
That would be wonderful.
Yeah.
Just
Right
say before the
game
game,
time.
right? Like, you see that white jersey you're planning on putting on tonight. Funny thing about that is.
And we could throw in Rio Ruiz.
Yeah, sure. We can sign him back for the week.
I think he played for Atlanta, too.
Did he end up? That does sound familiar.
Yeah.
Well, he started with the Astros, right?
Right.
Because he was a guy that they loved.
Nah, maybe he didn't. He ended up with Colorado.
Did
I
Nunez
think.
end up with the Braves? Stan, the number of times in my life that I confused Renato Nunez and Rio Ruiz.
Right. No, Renato Nunez went to Detroit.
Rio Ruiz,
Did play for Atlanta.
before the Orioles, was in Atlanta.
Atlanta. Okay, I knew that.
He
was
never
something.
actually got to Houston. He was in
The minor leagues with Houston.
He was in the Evan Gattis trade. He and Mike.
Okay.
He and Mike Fultonovich were both in the Evan Gattis
Evan
trade.
Gattis trade, yeah.
So that worked out.
man.
I think it worked out okay for Atlanta.
Renato Nunez was on the Toros de Tijuana.
Oh, okay. Well,
but he was actually released like 2 days ago.
Well, so you're saying he's available?
Well, yeah, he is.
Can he pitch? Is the question, because that's the problem.
Maybe they need to bring back Hunter Alberto. He can pitch.
He can pitch, actually.
Pitches a lot.
You're not wrong about that. Orioles Braves for the weekend, as Stan brought up. It's not just tonight that's problematic on paper with Dean Kramer and Max Fried, but tomorrow night, Kyle Bradish and Spencer Strider, and then on Sunday, Tyler Wells against Bryce Elder. Those are your pitching matchups for the weekend.
And again, that Sunday game starts at 11:30, both on
11:30
Peacock and NBC.
And on NBC over the air. And tomorrow night is on Fox alone. So no tonight on Masson.
No Masson.
No Masson the rest of the weekend.
No Masson.
This is not like
It's
it's
like
on
Roberto
both.
Duran.
No
Masson.
Masson.
No
Yes,
Masson.
correct. No Masson. Not bad, Stan. That's not bad
It's
at
one of my
all,
better
right?
ones. Yeah.
No Masson. It's not like the early rounds of the basketball playoffs, so you can watch on your local broadcaster and on national TV, just national TV, for the next 2 games after tonight. Stan is here. You can be headed out to check out all of the area minor league baseball teams this summer, but you got to go to PressBoxOnline.com/contest, and what you can sign up to win is 4 tickets for all of the area minor league baseball teams, plus an Easy Pass Maryland on-the-go transponder preloaded with $25 and a $50 gas card from Royal Farms to help you get around to all of those minor league parks. You must be 18 or older in order to enter. The sweepstakes ends June 14th. Get over to PressBoxOnline.com/contests right now in order to get signed up.
Just one quick thing. The Orioles, after this 3-game series with Atlanta, we have Tampa come in for 3, Pittsburgh come in for 3, and then before we hit the road again, the Angels and Shohei Ohtani come in for 4 games. I just wanted to let our listeners
that's
know
obviously
that Shohei would really be worth the price.
Correct,
of admission.
100%. I expect presuming Shohei pitches during that
In
series.
a 4-game series, you would
I
think
think that anytime he's playing baseball, it's worth going to look.
I was already
particularly,
looking at it. He's either lined up to pitch that Sunday or on Monday, so it's possible we might miss him. I'm not sure. I know. It'd be crazy.
Well, that would be very disappointing.
It would be. Well, because I wanted to go, so that's why I was trying to figure out when he pitched.
Again, I still think he's worth going out to watch,
right.
even if he doesn't pitch. But if he pitches, I would expect there to be like a walk-up crowd of 4,000 to 5,000 additional people just for that game.
Yeah, I would think they'd have on a weeknight And one of those games is a 1:30. Wait a minute.
I think the last game of the
last
series.
game is
yeah.
a 12:35 game. I could see that being close to 30,000.
Oh,
people.
it could be a massive crowd
Yeah.
for that game. I agree with that. All right. You know what? By the way, did you understand the Luis Torrens thing at all? Can you?
What, they acquired him from the?
Yeah, but no options.
Right.
Like-
So he's coming up. What happened was about a week ago, and I'm sure Griffin followed this. Remember the game where he had McCann was catching, I believe, and it was the 8th inning, and the Orioles had a 2-run lead, and he pinch hit for McCann, which meant that Rutschman had to come
catch
in
the
the
rest of the
game. But
Was that one of the double headers or maybe? No.
I don't think
Or
it was a
it
doubleheader,
was
but
one
it
of the
was
White Sox. It was the White Sox game a couple weeks
I
ago.
think it was a White Sox game, and I'm going, what is he doing? Why would you leave yourself? I don't think they want to leave themselves with any game where they only have the catcher that's in the game, in the game, being the only catcher that they have.
And that's
on
worth
the
the roster spot. I
Yeah.
mean,
It'll be interesting to see who goes. I mean, is it McKenna? Is it Stowers again? Or do they buy a week's time with Hayes? Maybe ILing Austin Hayes?
I
don't know.
It's the tricky part because the part that Griffin just asked is the part that I'm struggling with.
Is
Like,
it worth a
I
roster
hear
spot?
the argument.
Yeah.
I do, but
Well, clearly, these two catchers that they have,
yes.
there's enough something to McCann's bat.
Yes.
McCann's not Robinson Chirinos or Severino or Chance Sisco, and he's a good defender too. So he's going to play a good bit, and all of a sudden he becomes a valuable guy to DH, maybe play him at first if Mal. So you're going to have game days where you want both of them in the lineup, and it's a little scary if you get an injury.
It feels like you're looking for it's funny we just mentioned Josh Gaddis. It feels like you're looking for
Evan Gaddis.
Sorry, not Josh. I don't know who is Josh Gaddis is the coach, right? He's a coordinator, right? He was at Maryland, wasn't he?
That name rings.
I'm not. I don't think I'm making that up. But yes, Evan Gaddis, right? It feels like you're looking for the ideal thing is to have a player that can play a couple of positions.
Yeah.
That has could also be your emergency catcher
Right.
in these situations. That would be the ideal if you see this problem ahead of time and say we're going to want both McCann and Rutschman in the lineup some days, then you're thinking ahead on that and saying then we should add a third player to this roster that also has the ability to catch.
Right.
That can do some other things. Luis Torrens doesn't really offer you much of it. Like, he's not a bat. He's only an emergency catcher.
He's a little bit more what I've observed about Torrens. He was originally in that Seattle-San Diego trade, the one that sent Nola to and Ty France and Torrens went to Seattle. I like Torrens a little bit.
Okay.
He's more than just a bum to me. I mean, a good bit more than a bum.
Thank you. Josh Gaddis did just return to Maryland as their offense coordinator. So I'm not crazy. I was wrong, but I'm not crazy. And that's an important difference.
Well, you weren't wrong. You misspoke.
Sure.
Yeah.
But okay,
you
right.
simply
Yeah, that's
misspoke.
exactly right. That's all I did. I'm never wrong. What are we talking about? Thank you, Stan.
Griffin's wrong.
I 100%.
A lot of the time.
So many times.
Not a lot.
So many times. You see what happened when he showed up late today. Everything went to hell. Yeah. Everything. One wrong button was pressed, and
do you think Colson
nightmares
knows
there.
that he showed up late?
Oh, boy. We might have to have that conversation.
He may now.
Yeah, right. That might have to happen. I was actually scrambling this morning. It's a long story. I don't know why. I had to be in at a certain time today, and apparently that's when all of the school buses. I swear to God.
You didn't know that? That's
every single one of
them. That's why I come in when I come in.
Is you avoid the school buses in that process.
Definitely.
Well, where I live, I have the problem of there's only one lane roads for. There's not a second lane for 15 minutes into my drive, so a school bus can seriously wreck my day. And
Can't Colson get you an apartment around
you
here?
know, we should look into that, right? I feel like I've been here for a
Be
decade.
Glenn Clark radio show.
Ridiculous.
Like guest stay there.
Yeah, right. If they want to come in the night before, exactly right. We can look into that. Hey, we'll look into talking to Bo Smolka when we come back in. Ravens held the press conference
Always
yesterday.
Look forward to that.
100%. We'll talk about what we learned. Not a lot. To think that they handled their business appropriately in the press conference yesterday. Everybody put on the right face, said whatever happened in the past doesn't matter. That's the way it goes. And honestly, I know that we all have kind of a bloodthirst for information, but I think that's the right thing for everybody to do. But we'll talk about that, and we haven't talked to Bo yet about what they did and did not do in the draft. So we'll do all that next. Stan the Fan is here. It is a Friday edition of Glenn Clark Radio.
What air conditioning company can save 50% of your energy cost and qualify you for up to $7,500 in rebates? A.J. Michaels. We do more, we do it better for less. In Baltimore and Annapolis, ajmichaels.com.
The latest edition of PressBox is available now. On the cover, Luke Jackson looks at the pipeline of talent still to come for the Orioles, diving in on last year's #1 pick, Jackson Holiday, and other top prospects like Colton Cowser, Heston Kjerstad, Kobe Mayo, and more. Also inside, Todd Karpovich profiles Orioles pitcher Kyle Gibson, and Bo Smolka breaks down what progress would mean for the team's 2022 draft picks in their second pro season. PressBox is available for free at over 500 area locations, including 60 Royal Farm stores, and you can always find the entire edition as well as the best daily coverage of the Orioles, Ravens, and Terps at PressBoxOnline.com.
The All-America Senior Game powered by New Balance will be back at Johns Hopkins Homewood Field on July 29th. The most decorated girls and boys lacrosse players in the country have been invited to play in what is the premier lacrosse event of the year. Every college coach wants their players in this game, and if you dream of being in this game, you start by trying out for one of your regional underclass teams this summer. The best against the best. Get your tickets now at allamericalacrosse.com.
That first sip. That first bite. Start your day off right with a delicious breakfast at Royal Farms. Choose from a fantastic selection of fresh Royal Farms breakfast sandwiches and top it off with a rich hot cup of the freshest coffee in the world. At Royal Farms, breakfast is available day and night. It's the freshest breakfast in the world. Real fresh, real fast. Royal Farms.
Costas Inn has been serving up delicious steamed crabs for over 50 years. Lately, the crabs you want to eat when the weather warms up have gotten harder and harder to get. So get your crab-eating game plan in place. Make sure to stick this number on your fridge, 410-477-1975. Call ahead and reserve the size crabs you want. You may be able to walk in, but you may also be disappointed at the size or maybe even get shut out altogether. So call ahead, have a plan, and then arrive on your crab-eating vacation. Costas also has delicious crab soup and crab cakes. The Costas Inn at 4100 North Point Boulevard. For more than 50 years, they've been satisfying crab lovers in and around Baltimore.
Make the most out of every day in your Toyota RAV4. Available in hybrid or gas-only models. A RAV4 can get you where you want to go in style. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new RAV4s from your local Toyota dealer today.
Check out PressBoxOnline.com every day to find daily winners and betting advice from Jeremy Kahn. And if you want some advice about life decisions that you probably shouldn't make, here's Glenn Clark.
If you're thinking about betting the Kentucky Derby this weekend,
I am.
I know you are. Have you decided how you're going to bet yet?
I'm betting that
You're going with the Japanese horse?
Japanese horse.
Randy Moss really loves him. Randy
What's
Moss
his name?
Very high. Derma. Oh God, I've already forgotten.
Takasaki?
Oh yeah, that's something like that.
Yoshida.
Yoshida? No, that's the other guy.
That's the Red
yeah,
Sox
that's
guy.
the guy. He's killing it, by the way.
Otani?
I don't think it's Otani. No, it's Derma Sotogaki. Derma Sotogaki.
You know, somebody in Japan would be wise to name a horse Otani.
I mean, why wouldn't you? 100%, man. By the way,
and give him 5%.
You bring up Yoshida. He's unbelievable, isn't he? He is absolutely unbelievable.
And
despite the
fact
it's
he's one of
like
my
playing with a
fantasy-
hand tied behind your back, and yet he's still killing it right now. If you're thinking about betting the Kentucky Derby, what I would encourage you to do is make sure that you have taken advantage of all of the offers and incentives that are available to you for sports betting here in the state of Maryland. Like, for example, you can get 5 second-chance bets from PointsBet when you deposit and bet your first $50. So if you get something wrong, if you bet Derma Sotogaki and it just doesn't work out, you'll get another bet that will show up and a free one for you to make instead. But the only way to do it is to go to PressBoxOnline.com/offers, click on the PointsBet logo, and that'll get you through. There's no passcode that you can use, nothing like that. You got to go to PressBoxOnline.com/offers and sign up that way. Ravens held their press conference yesterday after Lamar Jackson signed his 5-year extension. Let's talk about that and the other events of the week, the draft, Rock Yacine, all of it with our PressBox Ravens beat writer, Mr. Bo Smolka, who's back with us on GCR. Bo, it's Glenn and Stan. Always good to catch up, my friend. Thank you for taking the time for us.
Hi, good morning. You're welcome.
Bo, I thought yesterday everybody, I thought there were a couple little interesting things in there. Like I think Lamar saying he's going to show up for OTAs was interesting, but for the most part, I thought it was presenting a unified front. Whatever happened in the past is irrelevant. We're all good, and I know that's disappointing to those of us who want the information and want to know all of the little ins and outs, but given where they are, it seemed like that was about as much as you could ask for in a public front from that group of guys, given how the last few months have gone.
Yeah, I just think the whole mood of the building yesterday was just kind of a collective relief that it's over and that they can move forward. And it happens in contract negotiations with other players. It gets bitter, it gets testy, and then it works out and they kind of hug and make up. But obviously the stakes here were so high. It dragged on for a long time, but it just seemed like everyone was eager to put it behind them and move forward. Yeah, we asked Lamar Jackson about the trade request. He wanted no part of revisiting that. He also didn't really say anything about what extent the Jalen Hurts contract might have done in terms of accelerating talks between the two sides. It seemed like that was probably a factor. He would not go there. He simply said, are the numbers met? And we came to an agreement kind of thing. But I do believe that was a factor. But as I said, I just think it was collective relief that they now know. They know where they're at. They know who they have. They know what kind of cap space they have now after that, which was also a big question they had to figure out. And both sides now seem ready to go forward. I will say I was the one that had said, Lamar Jackson said, yeah, I'll be here for OTAs. But then there were other people in the press there that yesterday that didn't take it that way. And then I went back and listened. And what he said, he was asked about OTAs, and he said, OTAs, like a question. And he said, I'll be here soon. I'll be here soon. So I had listened to that live. I thought he said he'd be here for OTAs. Some people were not as convinced. I guess we'll see. The first OTA is May 22nd. That's the first of the 10 OTA workouts. And so we'll see then whether he's there. But I think everybody is excited now that they know the quarterback. Todd Monken's here with a new offense. They have this new group of receivers, and it feels like there's a lot of potential offensively.
Hey, Bo, we had here behind Glenn the Lamar-o-meter, and that meter.
Yeah, I remember that.
That meter went from anywhere from like 40% to 80% through much of it. In listening to parts of that press conference yesterday, I got the sense that Lamar actually did a really good job keeping everybody in suspense, whether he would want to move or what, but that he didn't really activate anything to move anywhere else. I mean, it doesn't sound like he initiated any talks with any other teams. Your take on that?
My take on it is, I do think genuinely, I think he was genuine in that he wanted to be here.
Yeah.
I also think if a team had come forward with a $225 million fully guaranteed contract, that perspective might have changed a little bit.
Sure.
So I think generally he likes being here. I think he feels comfortable here. He knows everybody. He knows the staff. He knows everything. So, and they built an offense specifically for him. Now, how much that might change now, we'll see. But I think generally he's comfortable here. I think if another team had really come forward hard after him, then I think he would have listened. He never really made clear. He said there were some discussions, or it was vague about how much any other teams got involved.
Right.
I don't believe, as far as we know, there were no offer sheets made of any kind. And I just think that if a team had come at him hard, that would have maybe been different. But I do think he's genuine that he likes being here.
A follow-up to that is, if you were writing a column on Eric DeCosta, sort of how he stood tall, would it be a positive column, about Eric's, how he did his job through this?
I mean, probably, because ultimately he got the player he wanted, and he got probably roughly speaking, out the contract he wanted. I mean, I think as a general manager, always looking to make the contracts as much of a value for you and the team as you can to give you more money to spend elsewhere. But I think he was reasonable. I don't think Eric DeCosta took plenty of shots over the past year and a half about why didn't you get this done? Why didn't you get this done? What are they waiting for? And Eric DeCosta said many times, implied, and I don't know the ins and outs, but he basically said what we're waiting for is for Lamar Jackson. He said more than once, we'll operate at Lamar Jackson's urgency. So to some extent, it wasn't up to Eric DeCosta when this would get done. But I do think he had a strategy. He had an idea of how he wanted to go about it. He probably had marching orders from Steve Bisciotti that they were not going to go fully guaranteed. And so working with parameters and the values and all of those things, and then not dealing with an agent. And that's also tricky. Now, he also did that with Roquan Smith, so he has some experience dealing directly with players. But a lot of things were complicated about this, and it certainly took a toll on DeCosta. I mean, he said it. He said there were some dark days. He called it a burden at times. I don't think he enjoyed a whole lot of this at all. But I do think he had a strategy of where he wanted this to look like at the end, and I think he got pretty much where he wanted it to look like.
He is PressBox Ravens beat writer Bo Smolka. He's with us here on GCR. Bo, now that we move on from Lamar Jackson, of course, we look at the roster on the whole. The Ravens decided to go wide receiver, and as to your point, I think there's a lot of reason for excitement about what the Ravens could present offensively. I guess now the question kind of swings to the other side. Is Rock Ya-Sin enough to feel comfortable with what this is a franchise that has preached in recent years about building from the outside in defensively and building through cornerback? Is Rock Ya-Sin enough for you to feel comfortable there, or are you maybe a little bit concerned about what it is that they're presenting at the cornerback position at the moment?
I mean, I've seen this team enough times to say that I don't think you're ever not concerned about the cornerback position. And they still feel like Jalen Armour-Davis and Pepe Williams are going to be good corners for them. I know Armour-Davis had a really rough start his rookie year last year, got thrown in there in a couple bad spots and just did not play well, got benched, got hurt, and he was done. Brandon Stevens came here as a college cornerback, and the Ravens projected him to be a safety. Then they looked around and said, hey, you know what? Let's try you back at cornerback. And I think he's there now too. But I think they'll still look to add to the cornerback position. I know they have plenty of numbers there right now, but no, I don't think you can be fully comfortable with the cornerback setup, even having just signed Ya-Sin. You've got, like I said, you've got Stevens, you've got Armour-Davis, you've got Pepe Williams, you've got some other guys, and Kyle Hamilton, who may or may not play a little bit of slot, as we saw some last year. We don't know quite what they'll do with him, but as Eric DeCosta said last week, lack of depth at corners is an easy way to get beat, and it is. It always has been. It always will be. So I think they will continue to look to shore up that position.
I think they have to look to shore up that position. I just don't know what the options are for going about doing that. Yes, you could still bring back Marcus Peters, but he wasn't great a year ago. It seems like you're kind of going quantity over quality at the moment if that's the route that you go. But the other area that I just don't know that anybody's talking about, like I thought when Nolan Smith was on the board at that point, I thought it was totally plausible that was the way the Ravens were going to go in round one of the NFL draft. And I'll admit it was probably the way that I was leaning that I thought they should go at that point. I know they've spent a lot of assets draft-wise at the edge rush position in recent years with Odafe Oweh and with David Ojabo a year ago. And maybe David Ojabo, with a healthy offseason, is come in and going to be proving to be the rock star that people thought was a first-round talent. But I still think there's a fair amount of questions there about what exactly they can expect from this edge rush department as constructed.
I think that's a fair question. And, they could have gone in with a cornerback in the first round, too.
Yep.
They passed up a couple of good cornerbacks to stick with Zay Flowers. So they obviously made the commitment to offense in that way. And whether that board was stacked and they saw Flowers as their top-rated guy is a thing. But they think David Ojabo is going to be the first-round player that he was supposed to be before his Achilles went out on him, right? I mean, it was always a long view with him. Plays for McDonald at Michigan. McDonald knows him very well, and they expect him to be there this year in a way that he couldn't have been last year. Odafe Oweh is one that I think they have every right to expect more from him. It was kind of disconcerting how he kind of vanished at times last year. And those are two. Look, that's a first-round pick and a basically first-round pick that fell because of his torn Achilles that you've drafted in the last 2 years. So you can certainly expect that kind of production. And then you've got Tyus Bowser, who's kind of a, jack of all trades guy out there as well. They did draft Tavius Robinson in the 4th round out of Mississippi. And at the time, Eric DeCosta said he sees a lot of Zadarius Smith in him. Now, Zadarius Smith kind of worked his way over the course of 3 or 4 years to become the player he was when he left as a free agent. And I think with 4th-round picks, that's probably a fair trajectory to expect. I don't think they expect Tavius Robinson to come in and dominate right off the bat as a rookie. But, yeah, they do expect Oweh and Ajabo to be impact guys right now because Oweh's going his 3rd year. Ajabo is now fully healthy, and they got those guys for that job.
Bo, apparently this trade the Ravens made on Saturday to get back in with a 7th-round pick, you mentioned the long view on Ajabo. Of course, Ajabo would have been the number 1 pick. But I talked to somebody who really follows the draft, and he told me that the guard that they picked with
Andrew
Voorhees of USC, who hurt his knee last year, probably would have been like a 3rd or 4th round pick. But he'll be sort of stashed, is the way I understand it, this year to rehab.
Well, I mean, honestly, it's a very intriguing pick. Yeah. I know some people who follow the Pac-12 who are really high in Andrew Voorhees. He started, I think, all 5 years. He was a first-team All-American this year with USC. Then he tears his ACL at the Combine. So that puts him out of commission for the year, and they know that. So they trade back in. They traded a 6th-round pick from next year for him. And if you can convert that 6th-round pick from next year into a guy who, say, 2 years from now is a starting guard for you.
It's a fantastic trade.
Keep in mind, Kevin Zeitler probably will be gone by then. But, yeah, Voorhees will basically spend this entire year, I would think, on what's called the non-football injury list, which is because he won't technically go on IR because he, as the NFL defines it, he didn't get hurt playing football. And so he can be stashed all year for the Ravens, and he can rehab his knee. He's had other injuries in college, so that's a concern. But at the same time, as I said, he's a first-team All-American. He's a multi-year starter at USC, and it didn't cost you much to get him. And, by drafting him, he didn't become a free agent lottery where you'd have to outbid other teams for him. Mm-hmm. And you gave up a 6th-round pick. I think is a really, really intriguing draft pick.
I'm wondering if you've had a chance to scan the list of the undrafted free agents, and have you talked to any people? Are there any intriguing names there, especially at defensive secondary?
To be honest, I haven't yet, Stan.
Okay.
The rookie minicamp starts today, and it's today and tomorrow, and we'll be out there.
Okay.
I'll be out there tomorrow. Now, we're not able to watch practice tomorrow. We're only able to interview John Harbaugh and a couple of the players. So I have not.
Okay.
I haven't looked at the full list, and I know that I didn't even know if the Ravens have put it out yet. I just got back home, but they usually put out their list when they finally get all these guys cleared on physicals. I know rumors come out all about. Agents will say it, or a team or school will say who's coming. Sometimes there's a name that's there that doesn't show up, and there's other kind of gray area. But the team will put the list out probably today because now the guys are in the building and passing physicals, but I just haven't looked at it yet.
2 things really quickly. One, of the group, I mean, the names that stood out the most to everybody were, neither one is a secondary guy, but Dante Demas, the receiver from Maryland, and Keaton Mitchell, who we talked to the other day, who is the son of former Raven.
I did see that, right.
Anthony Mitchell.
So that's
yeah. Which it's a neat story. But and by the way, on top of that, like you talk to people, Bo, they swear this kid, he's a running back from East Carolina, is a kid that should have been drafted and absolutely has a genuine chance of making the roster. Like, it's not just a good story. It's a guy who can really play. And so he's an intriguing prospect because of that, Anthony Mitchell's son. But before we wrap up, the other news from this week, of course, was the Ravens not picking up Patrick Queen's 5th-year option. I thought we kind of saw that coming, given the fact that they had zero interest in talking about the subject, no matter how many times they were asked about it. Does it come off to you sort of like, hey, it kind of doesn't matter how well Patrick Queen played last year or even how well he plays this year, that once they made the commitment that they were going to pay Roquan Smith $20 million a year, that it just simply becomes a budget thing for them where they're saying we can't spend more money than that at inside linebacker?
I think that was a big factor. I mean, I think I thought once the Roquan Smith deal got done, it did seem like it's highly unlikely that Patrick Queen is also getting a second contract here, especially when at some point Lamar Jackson's getting paid and there's only so much money to go around. And now they've drafted Trenton Simpson in the 3rd round, who is basically the heir apparent to Patrick Queen. But, I know there was talk maybe the Ravens would move Patrick Queen during the draft. But I think the idea of Patrick Queen playing this year on his contract year alongside Roquan Smith, with Trenton Simpson playing behind them as a backup linebacker, this defense is better with Patrick Queen there. There's no question about it.
Yep.
And so, Patrick Queen has to be highly motivated to be in his contract year now. And he looked really good last year when he was playing alongside Roquan Smith. So I think it's a plus for the team overall that Queen was not traded and he's here playing with Simpson, with Roquan Smith this year. But as you said, it seemed likely that once the Roquan Smith deal got done, Patrick Smith was not likely to get a second contract here.
All right, Bo Smolka, at B Smolka on Twitter, of course, is how people can follow you. PressBoxOnline.com is where you read his stuff. By the way, Bo, I happened to read the story that you wrote about your train trip, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a great deal. Well done, my friend. That was really neat.
Thank you.
As a father, I thought that was really special.
Where can we read that?
Actually, right now, you can read at the top of my Twitter feed if you want.
Okay.
A story I wrote about my daughter and I took a cross-country train trip last summer from Baltimore to Glacier National Park in Montana.
I'd love to
It's a
read
really
it.
neat story. It's a really neat story, man. I enjoyed it a great deal. I asked Dan, are you guys bringing back the podcast at any point?
We probably will. I've had a tough time. We've had a lot of complications, but I'm hoping to, yes.
Okay. All right. We will look forward to that. Bo Smolka, always appreciate you, my friend. We'll talk to you in the coming weeks as the Ravens get on the field for OTAs. Thanks for hopping on with us this morning.
All right, you're welcome. Thank you.
It's Bo Smolka with us here on GCR. Today's show also brought to you by A.J. Michaels, expert and award-winning A.J. Michaels Heating, AC, Plumbing, and Home Performance will improve your home's energy efficiency and comfort levels. AC season is coming up fast. New rebates and discounts are available. More at ajmichaels.com. A quick note, just because you brought him up, Stan. We did have Andrew Voorhees on the show the other day, and he, of course, said, I'm not going to rule out the idea that I could get back on the field this year. And that's, of course he's going to say that, right? Like, he's going to work that way. It seems extraordinary unlikely, but, like, it's worth pointing out that most people didn't think David Ojabo could get back on the field last year, and he worked, and he did late in the season get on the field, so it's not impossible that if the Ravens were to make a run to the playoffs, that maybe he could end up being helpful. Of course, it's not the same position, like, you're not just going to put somebody out there for a handful of snaps.
What are the early reports on what's his name, the receiver from Maryland,
Dante Demas.
Yeah, he got hurt in the Iowa game.
That was the year before. Came back this year, and he played well. It just
doesn't have the same burst.
At one point, Dante Demas was thought of as a surefire top first couple of round draft pick.
Right.
Slides out of the draft entirely, which was still surprising to most people. Right. Absolutely worth bringing in as an undrafted free agent and at least looking at and maybe stashing on a practice squad. And I'm not trying to oversell Dante Demas and suggest that he's going to be the next Stephon Diggs, but let's remember that Stephon Diggs was a 5th-round draft pick once upon a time, and Dante Demas is a very talented player, so I'm not going to doubt the possibility that he could figure his way out. And that kid Keaton Mitchell, the more I brought him on because it's a neat story, right? It's Anthony Mitchell, who
Where did he play college?
East Carolina, where he was wildly productive. I mean, insanely productive at that level. And I just thought it was a cool story. It's Anthony Mitchell's kid.
And what position is he?
He's a running back.
Running back, okay.
Now, you would say, hey, the Ravens probably have running back nailed down with Dobbins, Edwards, and Justice Hill.
Right.
The first thought being, Justice Hill, I think everybody's about lukewarm on, but he's been helpful in special teams. And with those other two guys, I don't know that J.K. Dobbins or Gus Edwards is a certainty to be around moving forward. I think the Ravens like those guys. But given the injuries they've been through, the fact that neither one of them has ever sort of showed themselves to be a superstar, I think the question becomes, what do the Ravens believe their value to be? Because they're both going to be free agents.
Yeah.
And then what does the market think their value is? And so I just don't – it's a total – I have no idea shoulder shrug on both the future for both J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards in Baltimore.
Big year for Dobbins.
Huge year, right?
Usually
there are still people that believe that J.K. Dobbins is a special player.
I was one of those people, but I don't know what the injury.
Even when he came back, you saw it in moments, right? He just didn't have that next level. Like, he would break free, but he couldn't turn it into a touchdown. So you hope that he's got that next
further removed from the surgery that he
that's
can
the
be
case.
back. Yeah.
And if he shows that, then I think the Ravens are going to either tag him or they're going to do everything they can to keep him around. But if he's not that, I just don't know. So it might be that the Ravens say, hey, it's worth keeping another running back around because we don't know about the futures for these other two guys, and it might be that we need to figure out who our running backs are moving forward. So he's an intriguing name because of that to me too. Stan, I will ask you this question, then we'll grab a break and we'll come back in, we'll talk about it. Then we're going to talk to Andruw Jones. The Ravens, after they did all this, as Bo pointed out, there's a lot of excitement. There's every reason to be excited, right? Like, they went out and added Odell Beckham. They drafted another receiver. They got a new offensive coordinator. Lamar Jackson's back in the fold. Are you back to buying into the Ravens as a genuine Super Bowl contender? That's a bit, I mean, take a break. Then I'm going to have you answer that question on the other side, all right? That's what I want to know. Are you buying in as a genuine Super Bowl contender? We'll talk to Stan about that next. Then Andruw Jones joins us here on GCR. Are you a diehard O's fan looking for the perfect way to show your team spirit? Look no further than Birdland Sports. Birdland Sports is a small business run by fans for fans. They offer a wide variety of unofficial O's merchandise, from the Birds Are Coming tees to player cartoon shirts and more. And the best part? Their prices are more affordable than the big guys. So head to birdlandsports.com and grab your gear today. Show your support for the Birds with Birdland Sports.
The latest edition of PressBox is available now. On the cover, Luke Jackson looks at the pipeline of talent still to come for the Orioles, diving in on last year's #1 pick Jackson Holiday and other top prospects like Colton Cowser, Heston Kjerstad, Kobe Mayo, and more. Also inside, Todd Karpovich profiles Orioles pitcher Kyle Gibson, and Bo Smolka breaks down what progress would mean for the team's 2022 draft picks in their second pro season. PressBox is available for free at over 500 area locations, including 60 Royal Farm stores, and you can always find the entire edition as well as the best daily coverage of the Orioles, Ravens, and Terps at PressBoxOnline.com.
That first sip. That first bite. Start your day off right with a delicious breakfast at Royal Farms. Choose from a fantastic selection of fresh Royal Farms breakfast sandwiches and top it off with a rich hot cup of the freshest coffee in the world. At Royal Farms, breakfast is available day and night. It's the freshest breakfast in the world. Real fresh, real fast. Royal Farms.
Hartford Community College in Bel Air, Maryland, along with the National Junior College Athletic Association's Region 20, will host the 2023 NJCAA Men's Lacrosse National Championship May 13th and 14th at Hartford Sports Complex, 401 Thomas Run Road in Bel Air. Semifinals are on Saturday, May 13th. The National Championship is Sunday, May 14th. Catch the action for $10 each day. Tickets will be available in advance or at the gate on game day. Qualifying teams will be announced.
What air conditioning company can save 50% of your energy cost and qualify you for up to $7,500 in rebates? A.J. Michaels. We do more, we do it better for less. In Baltimore and Annapolis, ajmichaels.com.
If you miss anything on the show, don't forget that you can watch full episodes at youtube.com/PressBoxOnline, and you can download podcasts on Apple, iTunes, Amazon, and Grindr. Wait, did I say Grindr? I don't think that you would find it on Grindr. Not that I know it's on Grindr or anything, I swear. On second thought, you know what? I don't care what you think. Here's Glenn.
If you're watching us on video, Stan's where I was a couple weeks ago. Remember the day that Mike Bauman was on with us, and you were like, "Are you crying? Are you excited for Mike Bauman?" Stan's feeling what I was feeling that day, which is the pollen sucks. Yeah. It is just awful. And I feel like it was that day. I also feel like it's hot in here today, too. And I feel like that's adding to everything on top of it.
You know, I had an appointment. I have a cousin of mine who's an allergist.
Okay.
I'll give you a free plug, Dr. John Matz.
You have all of the cousins.
Yeah. They're lawyers,
right,
doctors.
like everybody.
You know, I'm an itinerant, I don't know what I am, paperboy. I'm a 71-year-old paperboy. But all kidding aside, John.
I really would like you to do a Newsies impression, by the way. I'd really like to stand on the PressBox, get your PressBox.
I've done that. I may do it in Aberdeen. next week.
I love
this
that.
Coming week.
Are you going to see Jackson Holiday?
I'm going to try and get out there
That's
one
awesome.
night. Yeah.
That's awesome.
But I went to see him last year. My eyes were absolutely, to be honest, much worse than this year. But I had an appointment scheduled this year. I'd forgotten that we made it because he likes to say, when did it start bothering you?
Sure.
I'm going to see you next year on April 4th. But I had double booked a teeth cleaning. And
oh boy,
I knew I was going to have
more
to,
important here?
I knew I was going to have to wait longer to get rescheduled with the tooth cleaning.
Yeah, because that's not your cousin.
Well, no, the cousin May 10th, so I lost like 5 weeks.
Oof.
I can't wait to get in to see him.
It's just awful right now.
Just terrible.
Speaking of the Ironbirds, earlier this week, you and Ross caught up with Jack Graham.
Yes, we talked to Jack on this past Monday. And by the way, I'll take one quick second to tell you that formatically, we're going to be changing up the Monday Zoom.
Oh.
We're going to still do it at 6 o'clock, although it might move to 5 o'clock. I don't know. But Luke is going to be a part of it.
Okay.
And we're going to de-emphasize getting an ex-Oriole or an ex-player every week. We're going to do that periodically.
Okay.
But, it seemed like...
You're going to combine your power rankings
into that too, and talk about, almost make it a little bit like an Orioles pregame show.
Okay.
On nights.
Look forward to that.
It's
So all three
easier.
of you, Luke, and Ross.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. That'll be great.
Ross ain't going anywhere.
And then last night, you got together with T.J. Brightman and Jennifer Grandal.
Yeah, very interesting discussion about, the nexus of power of the Baltimore Orioles, which is this group under John Angelos, his group of 5 or 6 VPs, of which Cal Perry is now.
That's right.
Yeah. Have you had him on yet?
I've not talked to Cal Perry yet.
Yeah.
I should do that.
He'd be a great guest for both of them.
I should do that. So all those shows can be found Facebook.com/PressBoxSports or YouTube.com/PressBoxOnline, PressBoxOnline.com/video. So that new format starts this coming
Monday. And just because next Thursday, I have one of the former investors in PressBox who I've developed a really great friendship with, Barry Blank, is coming in from Arizona for an Orioles series, and he made me promise months ago that I would take him to the Costas Inn. So the Orioles are off Thursday. He's arriving Thursday. So we moved Kevin Rocklitz because we're talking about.
Oh boy, he might never forgive you.
What?
He might.
Kevin?
Rocklitz, yeah,
Kevin,
I don't
he's
know.
fine.
Are
He's
you
fine
sure?
with it.
It's not what he said to me.
We're talking. Really?
No,
really? I get nervous.
I know. I understand.
I mean, why won't Andruw Jones talk to him?
Well, now, you know what? That's a whole different thing. Now, he actually gave me a couple of good reasons, and I got to be honest with you. Turns out he was a big fan of Eddie Murray, and on behalf of you running Eddie Murray out of town, he's not.
I can understand
Remember when the Yankees wouldn't talk to Jim Gray because of how he went after Pete Rose? Remember how Paul O'Neill said, "Hey, Jim, we're not going to talk after tonight because of how you treat." It's kind of that. It's all come to roost. Andruw Jones worshipped at the altar of Eddie Murray and has never forgiven you for running Eddie Murray out of town, Stan. So he said, nope. That's why, like he said, he was actually available all morning today.
Right.
But he specifically made me come in at 9:15 because he heard that you would not be willing to come in at that hour in order to do the interview.
Not for him. Eddie, I would have come in for. Anyway, Kevin Rocklitz is going to be at 5:30 this Thursday.
Okay,
with
and then you're
Stein
going to
and
go.
I.
Very cool.
And I'm taking Barry and his wife Ginger to dinner at the Costas Inn.
I'm trying to get Andrew Voorhees to the Costas Inn, actually. He was talking to us the other day after we chatted with him about how he's a big foodie, and he's excited because he's never been to the East Coast, and he wants to try some seafood. So I called up Nick. I said, hey, man, can I send somebody over to you?
You're going to know this story. This is an unbelievable story. About 3 months ago, Josh texts me. He says, hey, I need a favor.
This is, of course, Josh Charles.
Stan's my cousin,
nephew.
The actor, who's in Paris right now, and I was in Dundalk the other day.
Yeah, he's very similar. You guys are basically live the exact same life.
It's like the other Josh Charles.
Yeah.
Only his name is Stanley, and he delivers papers.
Yeah.
But you know Nick at the Costas Inn. What's he the biggest fan in the world of?
Oh, Springsteen, right? Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So about 3-4 months ago, Josh texted me, I need a big favor. My buddy, and now I've forgotten his name.
Okay.
But he manages the drummer for Springsteen.
Oh, Max Weinberg.
Max Weinberg.
Yeah.
So he was doing a show on the Eastern Shore, but he wanted to arrive in Baltimore, and fly to Baltimore from Chicago, and he wanted to eat at the Costas Inn.
Okay.
He wanted to eat crab. So Nick, I need a big favor from you. So I don't know the connection really with who this guy is. This guy is so tight with Springsteen. So they've become, Nick and this guy have become best friends.
Oh, that's cool.
And the guy loves the Costas Inn, right?
That's cool.
And he says, he goes, you've gone to like over 200 Springsteen concerts. Who's your connection for tickets? And he goes, I don't have a connection. I just get on. Get on. He goes, well, you have a connection now.
That's awesome.
It's like the nicest thing I've ever done in the world, and I had no idea
Well,
I was
I
doing
saw
that.
Nick posted a picture from.
He got the drumsticks from Max Weinberg.
I saw that, and I was like, I didn't know that started with you. I had no idea.
And it may lead to Springsteen one day eating at the.
Well, that would be.
I mean, that
would
be imagine?
Otherworldly.
I think they'd sign over 15% of the Costas.
I think it might be more than that. They'd be willing to sign over in order to get him in. That's really cool.
I can just see Costas and his wife coming over. Oh, you're the reason my son doesn't work. Has missed 200 days of work.
I was gonna say that's almost as good as Andrew Voorhees. Almost. I mean, like there's Andrew Voorhees and then Bruce Springsteen down here somewhere. Almost that good. All right, Stan. Two things I want to cover. Then I'm going to talk to Andruw Jones because again he said no, Stan. The first one would be, before we get to the question I asked you, I did want to cover, I talked about it yesterday. During the show, we got the news that Hunter Dickinson is going to go to Kansas.
Yeah.
I told you before, I am not worked up. This is not hindsight from me. This is not me trying to spin zone Maryland missing. I think it would have been significant for Maryland as a statement to have beat out Kentucky and Kansas and schools like that. I see the 7-footers that can't go to the NBA are not the guys that are winning national championships and making deep runs in the NCAA tournament. Those teams have largely struggled when they're centered around this type of player. And I'm in a tough place because I know he's good and he was who was available, and I get why you wanted him.
And there was all the ancillary stuff,
of course,
with Mike Brown,
Mike Jones,
Mike Jones,
and Jameer Young and all. I get it. I am just not worked up about. I think Deshaun Harris-Smith is the story of Maryland basketball. I think Dante Scott having a more consistent season is the story of Maryland basketball. I think they need horses. I think they need to get up and down the floor and have wings and forwards that they can get minutes from. I'm just not worked up about Hunter Dickinson the way that other Maryland fans are. What was your reaction?
I got excited when I heard he was in the transfer portal and that there was this connection with the new coach that who's our coach? I forget.
Oh, Kevin Willard? Yeah.
Kevin Willard.
Yes.
I was excited about the connection between Mike Brown and Hunter Dickinson, and I was also excited about Jameer Young and the connection with Dickinson.
Yep.
So it seemed like hey, that sounds like that's where he's going to come.
Yep.
And I was disappointed, but I'm so a fan of Kevin Willard and how he's turned this thing around. And I'm anxious to see some film of this Geronimo.
Yeah, Jordan Geronimo, who I don't think is going to be a big
great
piece.
Name.
Yeah, he is. I do agree with that. He is a great name. He'll join us a little bit later on in the show as well.
He didn't want to talk to me either?
I don't know what you did to him because when he said that to me, I said,
"Well, how did the Eddie Murray thing?"
I don't know if it's related to Eddie Murray.
Is he a relative of Andruw Jones?
And I said that. I was like, "Hey, how have you even heard of Stan DeFancha? Why would you even dislike the guy?" And he was like, "No, man, not doing it. Not coming on with him." I just said, wow.
Boy, the list grows.
It's weird, right? I thought it was just Tarico, but as it turns out, it's starting to be a lot. Good news, Darren O'Day still likes you. So you got that going for you.
He doesn't know me.
It's true. He came back on with you, though, for a second.
Right.
He signed up for a second time of being on with you.
Did he make a point of saying we'll
He did
Stan
say
be there?
specifically he wanted to come on Friday. He did say that when we called him. He was like, look, man, I'll come on Fridays, but no other day. So I actually was a little offended by that myself, for what it's worth. Stan, the question I asked going into break, a lot of excitement. Ravens get Lamar Jackson back. They added Odell Beckham. They bring in another wide receiver. This is probably about as committed as we've seen them to the wide receiver position in at least since Anquan Bolden was added, and then they drafted Torrey Smith.
Is it fair to say that they won't take a receiver next year in the first round?
Probably, unless I guess they could move on from Rashad Bateman. I don't know. There's reason with Todd Monken for there to be excitement about the Ravens. Are you buying back into them after all of the tumult of the offseason? Are you buying back into them as genuine, viable Super Bowl contenders?
Yeah. There's a lot to like over there right now. I think it is time for Lamar to, he's signed, sealed, time to deliver, to me. I think he's going to have enough weapons offensively that we can't say, well, you didn't really give him enough talent around him, playmakers around him. I don't think you can say, well, they had a high school offense, because Todd Monken's going to have a very high-level professional football offense. And I think the defense has got a chance to be really good, because I'm a believer in what Ajabo. I think Ajabo can maybe help Odafe the way that it's not quite as connected, but the way that Roquan helped Patrick Queen last year. I'm hoping that Ajabo's presence will free up a little more opportunities for Odafe to put some pressure on the quarterback.
Let me work outside in on what you just said, because the last part, I think to me it's the most pivotal part of will the Ravens be that type of team. The secondary concerns me, don't get me wrong, but they have a lot at the safety position with Marcus Williams and Kyle Hamilton, who was far better in coverage than I think any of us could have expected him to be. I think they're going to look to use Trenton Simpson as kind of a weapon X right now.
Mm-hmm.
Like, as much as people are talking about him as being Patrick Queen's ultimate replacement, I think that they like the idea of the fact that he lined up in all sorts of different ways. He lined up as a corner.
Could be a little like an Adalius
Thomas type, exactly right. And I like the concept of that. I think they can survive, and I do think they'll still add some more depth at the cornerback.
No question about it.
The edge rush is, to me,
the key to the team.
You can't depth your way to that. They've tried that the last couple of years, and they got far more production out of Justin Houston than I think we could have ever expected. But even that, over the toll of an entire season, ultimately kind of went away, right? He was a phenomenon for 2 months a year ago. And then after that, you remembered he was a guy that was a little bit older, and the wear of an entire season was a lot to ask. I don't think you can depth your way to solving the edge rush issue. I think it has to be solved by the guys that you have. So I think, to me, it's pivotal. Does David Ajabo become the guy that people thought was worthy of being a first-round pick? Does Odafe Owe get back into that mix? Can Tavius Robinson, who they just drafted, show some signs of being helpful? They've got to have an answer up front. When games are on the line, when you're in a battle with, a year ago, Tua Tagovailoa, and you just need somebody
to put some pressure on
to take them out of rhythm. As much as we talk about the issues in the secondary and the miscommunication problems they had, they desperately needed someone to put them in 2nd and 17, to put them behind the 8 ball at some point during the course of that game, and no one ever did. They desperately need someone to step up and make a play that way. To what you said about the offense, it was interesting. So yesterday, maybe not as much was said, but Eric DeCosta did a thing with Mike Florio this weekend. Griffin, I just sent that to you. Do you have that? Eric DeCosta did a thing with Mike Florio for NBC this week, and I kind of appreciate.
Is that why he didn't have time to come on?
Yeah, it was either Florio or us,
right.
And he was like, "Hey, this time I'm going to choose Florio. Next time I'm also going to choose Florio."
Yeah, but DeCosta knows about what I did to Eddie Murray.
Oh, it's still. Yeah. Oh boy, he's got some. As a lifelong Red Sox fan, he's got a lot of. Actually, the funny thing is he loves you for it.
Yes.
But his candor about the wide receiver thing, I kind of appreciated. Here's this clip from Eric DeCosta talking to Mike Florio this week.
Information about OBJ. And then how's that going to affect, Lamar as a passer? How's he going to play? We want to maximize Lamar's ability. I've probably done a poor job of doing that over the last couple of years in some ways, by not having more receivers around him. And we love the guys we have, but, in terms of building the best possible offense, that's a factor too. So
that's good.
That's good. Every situation.
I appreciated that. I appreciate him saying
candor and
look,
taking a little.
Whatever it is, we probably have failed Lamar a little bit. We probably have been wrong in how we did this for the quarterback specifically. Now, to the point,
especially given that you had him cheap for
Correct.
4 years.
Correct.
That he probably did, and it's an interesting admission to make because Lamar could come back and say, had you had you been giving me more talent the last 4 years, we'd be talking $60 million or $65 million.
Correct, 100%. And I think that probably came up at some point during the course of these conversations, right? Like if you're trying to negotiate against me based on passing numbers, I'm going to say back to you, you gave me Greg Roman. Right. You didn't let me be that guy. I did everything that I could do within the constructs of what you presented for me to do. So that's not going to fly with me that you think you can negotiate against me that way. So I did. I appreciated, and that probably explains why when someone says, hey, doesn't it seem like they paid a steep price for Odell Beckham? Yeah, it does. But I think part of that, as we said then, was Eric DeCosta recognizing that's kind of a tax you have to pay when you have failed in that department.
You know, it was interesting, that quote. Again, we haven't been, at least I never was able to find who said it. You did. The woman that said it in the article on CBS Sports about Bisciotti.
Right.
Bisciotti being very involved.
Yeah.
Deep in the negotiations.
It was Josina
for Beckham.
Anderson was who it was.
Okay,
you,
and she said something that Bisciotti had said, we want to try and get this done to square things with Lamar.
Yep.
And that's an admission of sort of the same thing that Eric admitted in that clip with Mike Florio.
Yeah, Ravens owner Steve Bisciotti has been in frequent communication with Odell Beckham Jr., pitching him on the idea of coming to Baltimore. So, yeah, I mean, I think this is look, however you got there, it doesn't excuse some of the issues they've had, and it's certainly every time the Ravens, all the excitement is Zay Jones, there's the other side of you that says, right, but they've always gotten this wrong. There is always going to creep back in when it comes to that until they prove otherwise, right? Until this year, Rashad Bateman and Zay Jones are both exceptional, and we say the tide maybe has turned for the Ravens in drafting wide receivers. But I did appreciate the fact it would be easy for Eric DeCosta to try to pretend like it's not a thing, but it is. It's very much a thing. It has been a problem for this franchise significantly.
You know how frustrated I've been over the last 2-3 months, with the Lamar situation.
Well, I thought you meant with the performance of Glenn Clark Radio, and I wish you would have maybe handled that privately instead of bringing it up on the show, Stan. I would prefer.
It's Griffin.
Well, yeah, it's true. We brought that up both privately and publicly.
But have I brought it up publicly?
Oh, a couple times. I think it's slipped through.
I didn't mean to.
Yeah.
It's this TIA thing. But all kidding aside, now I forgot.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to derail you, Stan. Your frustration. You had frustration with.
I had tremendous frustration. I've come out of this now having a newer appreciation because we consistently, I think we said, well, the reason this is dragged on is because of Lamar.
Mm-hmm.
That he should have been more willing to come to the table.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's interesting. Josh Allen signed, several months ago, and he ended up getting a good bit more money than Josh Allen did.
He did.
Because of the timing.
Right.
I think he did it perfectly for himself.
There's always going to be the statement that in the 4th and 5th year of his deal, his first deal, he did not have to play for those numbers.
Right.
And he could have forced the issue to do. One of the things I talk about constantly, Stan, is I'm stunned by how quarterbacks don't recognize how much leverage they have.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm stunned that we haven't gotten to the point of where it is in the NBA, where LeBron James says to a team, I'll sign with you, but understand I'm signing a series of one-year deals.
Right.
Because every year you're going to do a new deal for whatever the max is. Like, I'm never going to agree to something that doesn't pay me.
9-year deal, right.
Like, it's going to be a one-year deal. Then we're going to rip it up. We'll structure it however you want to. We'll call it a 5-year deal.
Right.
But what it's really going to be is a one-year deal. And at the end of that year, we're going to figure out where contracts are. We're going to figure out where the cap is. And whatever the max is that I can get the next year, you're going to pay me that next year. Like, that's what the NBA has become for the top stars, is it's all a series of one-year deals. They have all the leverage. The moment Kevin Durant decides that he's sick of being in Houston because those guys can't get it figured out and it's embarrassing to everyone, and yes, I'm taking out some personal frustration in this moment, he's going to walk in and say, I want to go to the Knicks, and the Suns are going to have no choice but to ship him on to the Knicks because those players have all the leverage. I have said all along, I'm kind of surprised, you speak to Josh Allen, that Josh Allen didn't go back in this offseason and say, hey, I don't know if you guys noticed, but the quarterback market moved.
Yeah.
And it's time for you to go ahead and rip up that deal you did with me and do the deal where I get all of the money. Now, Bills fans probably appreciate the fact that Josh Allen hasn't done that, and I think
and
most
he probably
of us
won't.
Right, and Patrick Mahomes hasn't done it in Kansas City, and Lamar Jackson is making more money this season than Patrick Mahomes will make. And, of course, everybody on the planet knows Patrick Mahomes is better than – no, I love Lamar Jackson, but we all know Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in football, maybe the best quarterback of all time. And yet he is not doing that. I'm just surprised that quarterbacks aren't choosing to use the leverage they have because everyone knows you have to have your quarterback in order to try to force more. That's an interesting thought to me. All right, let's do this. I'm going to talk to Andruw Jones because he doesn't want to talk to you. Right. But then I want you to come back and hang out with us afterwards for a little bit, if you'd be willing to. If you'd be willing to stick around. I understand you're a little offended by it, but if you're willing to stick around. Right. There are a couple other things that popped up this week.
Is it okay if I listen to the Andruw Jones interview?
I didn't ask him about that part. I think maybe that'll be all right, but we'll see how it goes. Right. Had the opportunity to catch up with the great Andruw Jones. We'll do that right now here on GCR. Well, what an honor it is to be joined right now here on GCR by one of my absolute, and I'm not kidding, favorite baseball players of all time. Orioles Braves, Sunday morning, 11:30 a.m. on NBC and Peacock. Matt Vasgersian, Ben McDonald, and the great Andruw Jones, who's with us here on GCR. Andruw, it's Glenn in Baltimore. It's so good to chat with you. Thank you for taking a couple of minutes for us.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's going to be an honor doing that game on Sunday. I know Baltimore is playing very good baseball. You know, top 10 in all offensive category and top 15 in pitching. So it's going to be a good match. I'm looking forward for it.
Yeah, the pitching has been a little bit of an issue for the Orioles this week against the Royals. They gave up something like 100 runs in 3 games. But to the point, how good this is for baseball, for a market like Baltimore, a great baseball city, to be involved with these national broadcasts, to be a team that's interesting to watch. How good do you feel like the Orioles are, and for the entirety of the sport, for other teams to be having a moment like this?
Well, I mean, I've been watching them. I keep up with baseball all the time. I've been watching them. They've been developed the last 2-3 years, and you can see the competitiveness and you can see the development, and they just putting it together. It's in a tough division. I played in the division before.
Yep.
We played Baltimore quite a few times in the playoff. I think my last year with Yankees, we played them in the playoff. I'm not recording that was the last time they were in the playoff, but we've seen the last few years, seeing the development. I'm excited. I'm always looking forward for teams that have young talent, just like the Atlanta Braves have young talent that's coming together and putting in a good year and trying to help the team win championship.
Yeah, Andruw, obviously, we try to pretend like that 2012 playoff series never happened around these parts. We just sort of ignore it. We're still convinced Nate McLouth hit the foul pole in Game 5. We'll take that to our graves. That's the way it is around here. Andruw Jones is with us here on GCR. Andruw, you mentioned the Braves, what stands out, it's not just that they have all of the talent, right? It's that they have done the thing where they have extended their young talent. And I can only imagine what it's done for the fan base down there to have that belief that their window wasn't just when they won the World Series a couple years ago, but it continues for some time. How important has that been for the Braves to get that done and lock up so many of these young guys over the course of the last couple of years?
Well, first of all, Allison Topless is doing a great job. When he came on board, he saw what kind of talent that we had and what kind of players we had. He went out there and did his job. He locked a lot of these young talent up for 5-6 years, taking the arbitration away, because you can see now how big the arbitration is getting now in the game of baseball. So, taking that away and still giving the kids, good money for them to go out there and help the team win. So, I've been watching this team since 2016, and when I got on board with, being on the special assistance assignment, I've been watching all these kids develop together, and I'm sure the Braves lost Swanson, lost Freddie Freeman, but they continue to make moves to replacement, and you can see how they still running on top of the division. So,
no doubt.
You know, when you got kids that just like to win, and you know, not saying anything about other teams that they want to go out there and lose every day. You know, they manage to put things together and never give up, and you know, even if they down, they always manage to come back and put a fight. So that's what I like about this team, and you know, I've been seeing for the last 4 or 5 years.
No, but Andrew, to your point, like in Baltimore, Adley Rutschman comes up last year and has been as advertised, if not somehow better, right? Like he's been unbelievable. And Gunnar Henderson comes up, and I think there's a part of us that's sitting here saying to ourselves, hey, could you please do what the Braves are doing? Lock these guys up and let us believe that there's a chance for this thing to continue for the next decade, for you to have a great opportunity. I think the Braves, in a way, like, you know, you mentioned the Yankees. Again, we forgive you for ever playing for the Yankees. We need you to know that. But, like, you mentioned what the Yankees were. I feel like the Braves have kind of become the model franchise for all other baseball fans to say, hey, this is the new way of doing things the right way. Develop your talent, commit to them, have that group of guys to build around for some time.
Well, I mean, you know, it's all coming to ownership. I mean, the ownership is giving the GM the go ahead to do their stuff.
Yeah.
You know, it have to come. You know, it have to come from the ownership. And you know, the Braves ownership is willing to believe in Alex and to believe the you know, the front office and everybody that, you know, the decision that they're making are the right decisions. So you know, every little thing that Alex do right now is touch into being gold. So you know, we managed to have great coaching staff that continue to push these guys in the right way and keep pushing, you know, keep telling, you know, the right things to go out there and do. So it all come to as a group, and I think you know, from top to the bottom, everybody's really pushing to win another championship for the city of Atlanta. I mean, you know, it's a great ballpark there. I don't know if you ever been there yet, but it's a great ballpark. There's a lot of atmosphere going there. There's so much to do. So the fans are all buying into the team to bring another championship thing. I mean, I know they saw it in 2021. So, you know, they're looking forward to getting another one again. So I'm excited. You know, I'm still part of them. You know, it's going to be fun. You know, it's going to be fun seeing Baltimore in person. I only watch them on TV the last few years. So I'm looking forward to see, you know, this good young talent of team to go play against the Braves.
Andruw Jones, just another couple of minutes here because we got to let him get on the golf course today here on GCR. Andruw, you just mentioned something. It's funny because you bring up the new ballpark. I have not had a chance to get down there yet, but I can tell you the Orioles actually took a trip before the season with the new governor of the state of Maryland, and they specifically were looking at the ballpark in Atlanta and saying, hey, we have this beautiful facility in Camden Yards, but we think we can do the area around the ballpark up a little bit better and maybe replicate what they have here now at the new ballpark in Atlanta. Could you tell us a little bit about how special that's been, not just the new ballpark, but the area around the park for fans to gather and some of the excitement that comes along with that?
Well, I'm sure a lot of people was very mad when they moved to Cobb County, but you know, the city of Atlanta really didn't want to develop the area around the old Turner Field because they wanted to stay there and you know, because it's such a memory area right there, you know, from Hank Aaron playing right across the street, you know, from, you know, we playing so many good championships at Turner Field. So they basically really wanted to stay there, but you know, Cobb County give Atlanta Braves a great chance of a property out there, and they took advantage of it. And you know, the front office and everybody went around and look at other ballparks and picnic little things that they like about other ballparks in the area and stuff, and put them all together and build this fantastic ballpark that we have for now in Cobb County. So you know, it took a lot. It took a long time, but you know, they made it happen. And this is, you know, as a fan going there, even if it's no baseball, I have been to the Battery and watch football games and watch basketball games. You know, the atmosphere atmosphere is so hyped down there.
That's cool, and it's obviously what it is the Orioles are looking to do. I wonder, Andrew, and this is a straight shoot, man. There's a few guys that never played for the Orioles. Ichiro's one of them. Kenny Lofton is one of them, and you are on this list of my favorite baseball players that ever to watch, and it's because you did everything, right? Like, you were a damn good defensive player, and you did little baseball. Yeah, obviously, you hit a ton of home runs as well, and it's some of what we remember most about you. But I'm wondering if, with some of these rules changes that baseball has implemented, the bigger bases, only being able to throw over a couple of times, and we see it in Baltimore on Sunday, you're likely to see Jorge Mateo and Cedric Mullins running frequently. I'm wondering if there's a part of you, I know everybody pushes back whenever rules are changed, but it kind of feels to me like we're bringing baseball back a little bit, and it's not just everybody swinging for home runs, and we're seeing a few more big innings and station to station and stuff like that. I'm wondering if you've enjoyed the product a little bit more with some of the rules changes because it's brought back a little bit of old school baseball.
All right, be honest with you, I love it. I mean, what I like most about it is the game time. We're playing 2 hours and 20 minutes games, and you don't see a lot of 3 hours and 10-minute games no more. So, I'm liking it that the base is whatever. Base is the base. It doesn't matter. I think guys can get a little advantage if they hit the ball down the line by missing the bag or hit the bag. But I think the throwing over, the running of the game, I like that because it kind of got away. Everybody was trying to look for homers and driving the ball more than stealing bases. You make a team look different of who they're gonna sign for a catcher, because if the catcher cannot throw,
yep,
it's gonna make it hard because this guy's gonna start running left and right. So you want to have a good catcher that can throw people out, and it's a good defensive catcher, not just an offensive catcher, but a good defensive catcher. You're looking for your middle infielder to be very athletic, that have range, because now that they don't have that really big shift no more, and ball's not going to be hitting right at the person when the metrics say what it is. But beside that, still, they shift back in the day. I mean, they shift for specific guys, but they didn't have the big shift like they have the last 3 or 4 or 5 years. You know what I'm saying? So you get guys to make more great plays than just have a hard ground ball hit right at you.
I think it's been great. I really have enjoyed it. All right, last one. I know you're probably sick of the wait already, but are you encouraged by the way the vote has gone in recent years that you're going to be able to get the call here to Cooperstown in the next couple of years?
We're trending. We move in the right direction. I'm sitting there just looking and see what happens. We got plenty more years to go, but if it happens, it's going to be an honor. It's going to be a special day. But if it don't happen, it's a lot of guys. It's a lot of guys that play this game that achieve a lot of stuff in this game that they did not make it.
It's true.
It's one of those things. You cannot be mad about it because obviously the monk is not voting people in. So it's all about what the writers want, what they believe in, what they see, and if they think that you're Hall of Fame, they're gonna vote you in. If they don't think you are, you're gonna be sit out and look outside of it. But I think we're moving in the right way with the percentage, and for the last few years, the percentage jumped pretty good from 10% to 20%. So I'm looking forward for the next year and see what happens.
All right, but I swear I promise this is my last one, because I just thought of something. You, of course, lit the world on fire when you came up in 96. And I remember 97 maybe wasn't the best. We're dealing with something similar with Gunnar Henderson here in Baltimore, who came up last year at a really young age. And there was so much expectation, and this year he was the favorite for American League Rookie of the Year. As someone who went through this a little bit, what advice would you give to Orioles fans maybe about being patient with Gunnar Henderson? Because we know, it didn't take all that much longer for you to figure it out at a young age and become one of the best players in baseball.
Well, I mean, it just depends. Sometimes they put too much hype on one specific player because they think that he's going to be the future of the team. But it's a team. It's 9 other players that go out there and can do the job. So, instead of just trying to put too much pressure and show everybody that you belong there or that you're going to take this team to the promised land, just bond together. I mean, patience is, you play 162 games. This game is a game of failure. I have season that I have started season very slow, but I finished the season strong and helped my team in the playoffs. So, it's not the way you start, it's the way you finish. So, people have to be patient, but I'm sure a lot of people is not patient because you got those fans. It's like, I want to see now, I want to see what he can do. So, it's hard. This game is hard. These guys work hard on it every day, and a lot of people don't see the work effort that they put underneath the door. So to trying to be as much consistent again. But if the kid got talent and everybody see what he can do, it's just adjustment that you have to make constantly every day. And if he's willing to do it and he's a quick learner, he's going to be fine.
Andruw Jones, of course, Sunday morning, 11:30 a.m., he, Matt Vasgersian, and our buddy Ben McDonald on NBC and Peacock for Orioles Braves. Truly an honor, my friend. Seriously, I'm a huge fan and really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you so much for spending a couple of minutes with us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
That's Andruw Jones, obviously a legend of the game, and it's easy to forget. Remember, he came up in '96 and hit those 2 home runs at the age of 19, and the assumption was this guy might be the most special player we've ever seen. And in '97, it was kind of a struggle for him for a little while, and so it just kind of struck with me that maybe there's a parallel there to what Gunnar Henderson's been going through to start this season. So appreciate his
Good
input
line
on
of
that.
questioning. Good line of questioning.
Enjoyed the conversation, really did, with Andruw Jones, an absolute legend in the game. Wind it down. Stan the Fan is here with us on a Friday edition of the program. If you've not picked up this print issue of PressBox with Jackson Holliday, who Stan's going to see, do you know what night you're going up there?
No.
Okay.
Don't know yet.
We want to make sure we don't want to have too many of the paparazzi there either, too. So it might be smarter if we.
Well, I'm trying to check when Eddie Murray's going to be there.
Yeah. Maybe we can get maybe we can get Andruw Jones up there. I was trying to explain, by the way. I had a friend who was in town last week, and we wandered over to Union Brewery for a little bit. And he asked me what beer he should get, and I said, look, well, Duck Pin is what they're known for, but everybody around here gets Steady Eddie. And he said, well, why? And I was like, basically just because we're obsessed with Eddie Murray. Yeah. It really has nothing at all to do with the beer. It's just because we're obsessed with Eddie Murray.
It's a great name for a beer.
It's an excellent name, and the can is beautiful. And then the beer's fine. I don't want to take anything away from the beer. It's just,
I got you.
That's the reason why we drink the beer. Jackson Holliday is on the cover. He's getting ready to make his debut with the Ironbirds here shortly. Pick up
his home debut.
Yes, thank you. Correct. He has been with the Ironbirds, obviously, but his home debut with the Ironbirds. Go pick this up because it really does dive into. We keep talking about the pipeline that exists, despite the fact that Gunnar and Adley and Grayson are here. There's a lot more to come within the system, including Jackson Holliday. Go get that right now at your neighborhood Royal Farms. Any of the hundreds of locations around town where you find PressBox, read it all at PressBoxOnline.com. Did you guys see? So it's not this year that they're going to the 12-team college football playoff. It's the following year, so it will be the 2024 season is when the 12-team playoff kicks in.
And that's up from 4 teams?
Yeah, they go from 4 to 12 teams in the college football playoff. They announced what the schedule is going to be for the playoff that year.
Right.
So the first round, the top 4 teams will all get a bye.
Okay.
And then there'll be 4 games
between the other 8.
On December 20th and 21st, a Friday night, and then 3 games on Saturday. Those will be the first-round games. Those games are going to be played at campus sites. Home games.
December?
December 20th and 21st. Boy. Which sounds like a really bad idea to me. Imagine Ohio State or Michigan being in one of those games on December 20. Now, I get somebody's going to say, well, hey, there are the Chicago Bears and the Buffalo Bills play. The Buffalo Bills, by the way, have you looked? Well, they're building a stadium. They're still not going to bother to put a roof on it.
They want the snow every year.
They are in favor of playing miserable,
the 40-mile-per-hour
blizzard.
Winds,
They are trying for that because they're putting $1.5 billion into a stadium and not bothering to put a roof on it. But they're going to play those. I guess what I read is that they're going to offer schools that if they would prefer, they can choose a neutral site to play those games at. So, like, if Notre Dame was in the game and they wanted to
play in Atlanta,
or
in
Indiana,
if they were the host,
if they're the home team, if they're the higher seed, if you'd like, you can move it to a neutral site of your choosing.
Okay. So they would move it to the Hoosier Dome.
Yeah, probably to Indianapolis in order to play it indoors, avoid the weather, things like that, and still have their fan base have the advantage of being able to travel to the game. So that's Friday and Saturday. It's a holiday week, but I don't know. I think we kind of like the.
Yeah.
I think I'm excited about the idea of big games that week.
It's interesting because I guess just because the campus might be less full with
students
going
being on. It will be interesting to see which schools.
Like Georgia. It won't matter for Georgia. It won't matter for Ohio State,
Alabama.
Yeah, they're going to travel, but.
So is this basically being
show up? Yeah.
Is this basically being set up? These games will replace the bowl games.
Well, so it's interesting you bring that up, Stan. That's the first round.
Okay.
The next round, the quarterfinal round.
Right.
Will be the Fiesta Bowl, the Peach Bowl, the Rose Bowl, and the Sugar Bowl will all be quarterfinal games on December 31st and 1st. And then the semifinals will also be the Orange Bowl and the Cotton Bowl. So those on the 9th and 10th. So those bowl games will now move to the 9th and the 10th.
So we got 4 rounds of this college
There's
football?
4 rounds of the college football playoff.
So a player who I guess they're getting NIL money now.
Yes, correct.
But a player could play 11 or 12 regular season games.
Could play 13 with a conference championship game.
Right, and then
could play as many as
4 more games, 17
could
games.
Play,
it's crazy.
It's crazy. Now, the argument that we made is that it helps them adjust to NFL life, right? Like, how many times have we talked over the years about a player maybe hitting a bit of a wall,
rookie wall,
late in the season?
Yeah, it's really great when you're at 31 and you can't even move anymore.
Stan, I understand wholeheartedly.
Terrible idea.
I understand exactly. And obviously not all these guys are going to be NFL players. Right. That's the other part of this, right? Like that TCU roster from a year ago, how many of those guys ultimately will be in the NFL? If there's 100 players on that team, 8? Maybe are NFL players at some point. So I'm not dismissing the point that you're making in this process whatsoever. I think part of it is they did it for these bowl games. These bowl games realized that these guys were not playing. That once, if you weren't a semifinal game, even the Rose Bowl guys are saying, yeah, I'm good. It's meaningless. I'm not going to play in the game. So the bowl games say, well, we need to have the players playing it. How do we make sure we have the players playing it? Well, make sure that the games are meaningful. Make them playoff games. It lines up for that weekend of the semifinals. You'll essentially have NFL college football for like 5 straight nights. It extends that out over the course of those nights. So I think for the fans, they say, well, that sounds pretty good.
Pretty good.
We'll take that. Your point, Stan, about the players and what you're asking from a group of, some of these guys are 19 years old, right?
Yeah.
Like that's a lot. I think the question is it overkill? Is it, beyond just the safety aspect of it, is it too much? Are we really all that concerned about a 5 versus 12 matchup in the college football playoff that we will plan a weekend around the holidays around making sure that we're going to be at home in order to watch the game?
I feel like I don't know. I feel like the holidays is always a weird time where it's like if I have time to, watch TV, I'm obviously going to be watching whatever big game is on.
But there's a lot going on.
There's a lot going on, yeah.
Right.
Man, that is, I think it should only be good because it'll give us more people stuff for people to talk about more, and we're gonna. We'll care enough.
Okay.
And what's this going to do? The NFL usually had Saturday games the last couple weeks of the regular season.
So I think because the NFL added week 17, it actually times out week 18. That it times out perfectly. That I'm going to assume there was buy-in because that is a good point. I do think that this year they started the Saturday games the week before Christmas, so that becomes problematic. You don't want to go up with your playoff games up against the NFL. That's a real issue. Yeah. I assume they got some buy-in from the NFL.
Yeah,
the NFL said,
I'm sure they communicated.
Right.
Okay, we'll have this time slot.
Right, and you
can.
Well, if nothing else, I think the networks would want to make sure that I guess ESPN has all of the college football playoff. So that's probably not an issue for them because they don't. Their only NFL package is the Monday night game. Although, didn't they get some of those Saturday games late in the season? ESPN didn't that?
The NFL games?
I think they did. I think
they had one of the London games
because I
thought
think
it was the NFL Network.
They always did, but
Yeah.
I thought ESPN got it because you don't play a Monday night football game in the last week of the
17
season.
or 18.
So I thought the trade-off was they gave them some of the Saturday package for making up for that. Of course, this year will also be the first year that you have the Amazon Black Friday game. This year on Thanksgiving Friday in the afternoon too. By the way, like a mid-afternoon Friday game in the NFL, kind of like how they played a Wednesday afternoon game in Pittsburgh a couple of years ago with the Baltimore Ravens.
The WAF?
Yeah, Friday. What was the joke? We had Tarico on that day, and he said, "I want to be forever known as the voice of Wednesday afternoon football," which I was like, "That's pretty good." Again, sorry, I know that's sensitive because there's a beef between the two of you guys, but it was a pretty good line.
Back to people caring about a 5-12 college football game on a Friday or a Saturday that there's NFL on. I mean, it's gonna depend. I guess they might have to rig the rankings in some way.
In order to make sure that
if it's Cincinnati UCF.
Yeah, it's
as
a tough
5-12
sell.
game.
It's a tough
if
sell.
But if
You're
it's
right.
Penn State and Oregon, like that.
It's a little bit more intriguing. You're not wrong about that.
So,
I don't know. There's a part of me as a fan who's like, okay, just to your point.
You really think 12 teams is the right number?
Oh, I don't. I think it's insane that they jumped right from 4 to 12.
Well, I can't wait for the 64.
So
everybody said
into like probably in 4 years it'll be 24.
They'll start in
it
November.
could very well be 24
They'll start
by
November. It'll be a
halfway.
64-team bracket.
Right.
Regular season runs through October.
As soon as the one season ends. No, I get it. I think everybody was clamoring for 8 teams. Everybody said, "Give us 8 teams. Give us 8 teams."
6 or 8 teams.
Right.
That should be more than enough.
I think
this is kind of preposterous.
The big part to me was present a path. You bring up, Cincinnati now will be in the Big 12, so they won't be a factor in this. But present the opportunity for every team in the country to have a chance to win the national championship. Because what they had done is said, even if you go undefeated, if you're not in a power conference, we're not going to give you the opportunity to play for a national championship. So make it 8 teams. Give all of the conference champions a spot. Give one to the best group of 5 team, the best team from the Sun Belt or the American or whatever it is, and then have 2 wild cards in there as well, and you got an 8-team playoff that everybody's good with. But this, to me, is about protecting the bowl games. It's about saying to all of the major bowl games, every year, your game will matter. Nobody's going to be able to bail on playing in your game to those 6 by creating it this way, that there are 4 quarterfinals, 2 semifinals to make sure that all of those bowl games matter and that all of the players will participate in them instead of skipping them to get ready for the NFL.
And I guess they feel that those games will be drawing larger crowds than the current, bowl situation.
Yeah, I think
because they quote unquote mean something.
Right, correct. And I think that's exactly how they feel. Now, it's not going to change the Liberty Bowl. Like, that's still going to be what it is. They're not going to be able to make that one matter.
How about
more.
the Pool-on Weed Eater?
That's a very important one, the Pool-on Weed Eater Bowl, or the Bad Boys Mowers Gasparilla Bowl. All of the most important bowl games. What was the one that I feel like there's one that was gone that Maryland played in a couple of years. Maryland played in the
Pinstripe?
No, the Pinstripe Bowl is still around. The historic legacy of the Pinstripe Bowl still exists.
Oh, my God.
Maryland, of course, the Mayo Bowl.
It's such an honor to. Yeah, the Duke's Mayo.
The Duke's Mayo Bowl, baby. All right, when we come back in, we'll get a tidbit, we'll get tubular to wind things down, and then Jordan Geronimo, speaking of Maryland, is going to join us before he comes to play basketball at the University of Maryland. Don't forget, PressBoxOnline.com/contest. That's how you sign up. Win 4 tickets to all of the minor league baseball teams in the area, plus an Easy Pass Maryland on-the-go transponder preloaded with $25 and a $50 gas card from Royal Farms to help you get around. Must be 18 or older. Sweepstakes ends June 14th. PressBoxOnline.com/contests.
The All-America Senior Game powered by New Balance will be back at Johns Hopkins Homewood Field on July 29th. The most decorated girls and boys lacrosse players in the country have been invited to play in what is the premier lacrosse event of the year. Every college coach wants their players in this game, and if you dream of being in this game, you start by trying out for one of your regional underclass teams this summer. The best against the best. Get your tickets now at allamericalacrosse.com.
Baseball season is finally here, and what better way to celebrate than with some fresh gear from Birdland Sports? As a small business run by O's fans, Birdland Sports offers a great selection of unofficial merchandise, including unique designs like Birds Are Coming tees, player cartoon shirts, and championship prediction designs. And the best part, their prices are more affordable than the big guys. Get high-quality gear without breaking the bank. So whether you're heading to the ballpark or watching from home, show your love for the birds with Birdland Sports. Visit birdlandsports.com today to browse their collection and gear up for the season. Let's go O's!
Whether your focus is luxury and comfort, convenience and technologically advanced connectivity, or sporty performance and aggressive styling, we've got the perfect Highlander for you. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Highlanders from your local Toyota dealer today.
Hartford Community College in Bel Air, Maryland, along with the National Junior College Athletic Association's Region 20, will host the 2023 NJCAA Men's Lacrosse National Championship May 13th and 14th at Hartford Sports Complex, 401 Thomas Run Road in Bel Air. Semifinals are on Saturday, May 13th. The national championship is Sunday, May 14th. Catch the action for $10 each day. Tickets will be available in advance or at the gate on game day. Qualifying teams will be announced.
Costas Inn has been serving up delicious steamed crabs for over 50 years. Lately, the crabs you want to eat when the weather warms up have gotten harder and harder to get. So get your crab eating game plan in place. Make sure to stick this number on your fridge, 410-477-1975. Call ahead and reserve the size crabs you want. You may be able to walk in, but you may also be disappointed at the size or maybe even get shut out altogether. So call ahead, have a plan, and then arrive on your crab eating vacation. Costas also has delicious crab soup and crab cakes. The Costas Inn at 4100 North Point Boulevard. For more than 50 years, they've been satisfying crab lovers in and around Baltimore.
If you need more of Glenn, you can also hear him every Sunday with Rita on 105.7 The Fan. But also, if you need more of Glenn, what's wrong with you?
All right, final segment of the week. Stan the Fan Charles in studio with us. That's not. Wait a second. It's not Andruw Jones, right?
It wasn't Mike Tirico.
Okay, all right. I didn't know if maybe he had to handle that. Sometimes, just understand, mano a mano, you got to handle some things. That's the way that it works. Let's get a tidbit, and then we'll get tubular, and then we will talk to Jordan Geronimo, incoming Maryland basketball transfer. Tidbit is brought to you today by, this was going to be brought to you by A.J. Michaels. Expert and award-winning A.J. Michaels Heating, AC, Plumbing, and Home Performance will improve your home's energy efficiency and comfort levels. AC season is coming up fast. New rebates and discounts are available. More at ajmichaels.com.
The Warriors did take down the Lakers and level the series last night.
They just take them down. They bludgeoned them.
Yes, they did. A couple back-to-back nights of poor NBA games.
So it's a real bummer when that's what you have to watch. There's only one game on for the night, and it's just not. No. Now, it kind of reminded, Anthony Davis was not great last night, and I think the Lakers go as Anthony Davis goes.
It was interesting. So this is a stat pointed out that the Lakers picked up Steph Curry in the backcourt 17 times, which was the same amount they did in Game 1. They were scoring about a point per possession of those 17 possessions in Game 1. The Warriors were. Last night they were scoring 2 points of possession whenever the Lakers picked up Steph Curry in the backcourt.
Tim Legler did a great piece with Scott Van Pelt last night where he broke it down. They basically played Stephon Curry as a point guard last night. He was handling the ball, and it created his ability to move both ways and back through the Lakers' defense.
Left Klay Thompson wide open on many occasions last night. He looked like Game 6 Klay last night.
And Draymond Green, I always get because I'm a Warriors fan. I really like the Warriors.
You told us that before.
Yeah.
Where did that come from?
Came the last
bandwagon.
3 or 4 years.
Just watching them play?
Just watching them
I
play.
say this sometimes, too. I'm not a Warriors fan, but I can't lie. It is a delight to watch them play basketball.
They're,
I enjoy sitting down and spending an evening watching the Warriors play basketball.
Right. They are just absolutely fantastic to watch. And last night they put on a clinic. It really Legler really spelled it out. And it's going to be interesting to see the way the chess pieces move, to see how the Lakers counteract.
I thought it was fat. Draymond, do you bring him up? He was attacking last night.
Yeah, Draymond was very decisive in the game offensively.
Yeah, I thought that was,
of course, always defensively and
rebounding,
keeping balls alive.
But the number of times that he looked at the lane and said, there's space there, and
I'm
shows,
just going to take it. Yeah.
Right? Like, was really interesting to me that we don't typically see. There were moments last night where he looked like LeBron in that way. And, of course, we know Draymond Green is not LeBron James, but he had that same mentality a couple times, just sort of looking around, what's in front of me? Okay, I'm going to go. And I thought that was a completely different thing that we hadn't seen much of.
Yeah, I mean, some credit probably has to be given to Steve Kerr. It was so the Warriors won by 27. It was the 17th playoff game that Steve Kerr had won by 25 points or more as a head coach, tied him for the most all time with Greg Popovich. Most 25-point wins in the playoffs.
I don't take anything away from Steve Kerr. It's not like he did that with anybody besides
I
these players.
Yes.
Like
yes. But just the fact
like it's
that
all the same guys
that
when
the Lakers defended Steph the same way they did in Game 1, they figured out a way to score more.
I'm with you. My only point was it's not like Steve Kerr also did it in Boston or also did it in Denver or something like that. He's done all of those games are with the same team.
So the Angels and the Cardinals played earlier during their midweek series.
Yes.
And the first game of that series was the first ever game between those two teams without Albert Pujols in the lineup.
Well, how about that?
Yeah. Since they didn't start
Wait a
playing.
second, what was the first year of interleague play?
2000. I don't know. Was
wow.
They first played 2001. Was the first time they
That is really kind of wild.
Yeah.
Honestly.
It's the first time ever that.
And of course, he had that little cup of coffee with the Dodgers, but they didn't play during that time.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
The Rays became the 5th team since 1947 to win 25 of their first 31 games. Of course, they're now 27 in
bonkers. It's
in
just
6
absolutely
or 5,
insane.
I don't know. They joined the 1984 Tigers, the 2016 Chicago Cubs, 1958 New York Yankees, and 1955 Brooklyn Dodgers.
So, it's interesting. Did you see this the other day? Because the Bruins lost. All of the teams...
I did see the Bruins lose, yeah.
Well, thank you. But all of the teams in sports history that had the best records in the regular season in all 4 major sports, none of them won the title that year.
Well,
so all the teams that... So it's the Bruins this year in hockey. Those 73-win Warriors. The 73.
How about the year the Seattle Mariners?
The Seattle Mariners have
games,
in Major League Baseball, and of course the undefeated Patriots.
They
all of the teams, the best records. Because remember, they played more games than the Dolphins did when the Dolphins went undefeated.
What was the best record in MLB ever?
That was the Mariners.
Oh, the Mariners.
Like Stan just said, all 4 of the teams that have in each of the respective American pro sports that had the best regular seasons ever, all 4 of them failed to win the title that year.
I was going to say get your bets in because these 4 teams that also, since 1948, they all won
got
the
off to
World
those
Series.
good starts.
Yes, that have won.
So the point is, get off to a great
31.
start, but then ease up a little bit.
Up.
Don't finish with the most wins.
Don't finish with the best team ever.
Correct. Then you can go on to win the title. That's the way you go about doing it.
It is, of course, John Means Day 2 years ago today. In 2021, May 5th, was John Means' no-hitter. I wanted to
Should have been a perfect game.
Yes, I was going to do – I have 2 tidbits. I think I'm going to do this one. I want to do the lineup from that game. Can you guys go 1 through 9, the lineup, the Orioles lineup in John
This is
Means.
only 2 years ago, so
Yeah.
this is
position. Can we mention the position?
Yes. Well,
Severino was the catcher.
He was the catcher. Where was he batting, Stan?
I'm going to guess
No way
8th or 9th.
No.
He cleanup?
He was batting cleanup. He was batting 4th that game. He went 0 for 4.
Okay.
Pedro Severino. Cost him a perfect game.
Joey Rickard?
Joey Ricard was not in the lineup.
He
was
probably
gone.
wasn't on the
he was
team,
gone
yeah.
by then. Cedric Mullins.
Cedric Mullins, where was he batting?
Leadoff.
He was batting leadoff, playing center.
Austin Hayes.
Austin Hayes, where was he batting?
6th.
Not 6th.
Second.
Third.
Second. He was 2nd. Playing left field.
Santander.
Santander was not in the lineup this day.
Mancini.
Mancini.
Where was he batting?
If Severino was
third.
Yeah, third.
Third. He was third. 3-run homer.
Okay.
For Trey Mancini, designated hitter this day. So you have the 1 through 4.
Rio Ruiz.
Rio Ruiz did finish the game. He was not in the starting lineup.
Son of a
He got
bitch.
the final out. Rio Ruiz did, right? Or
I would have really liked to have
Was
come.
it Glacier?
no, it was Arias. Arias got the final out.
What was the
Well,
guy?
then Arias.
Yeah,
Way to go,
away.
idiot.
Damn it. Where was he batting?
I don't know. 8th.
No.
7th.
No.
6th.
Not 6th.
9th.
Ninth.
Okay.
He was playing shortstop.
He was playing shortstop?
Arias
Because I
was
was
playing
going to guess
shortstop.
the shortstop was the guy from the Phillies that we had.
Franco?
He was in the lineup. Michael Franco.
Macau Franco. He was playing third base.
He was playing third base.
And
before Ruiz
batting
came in.
5th.
He was batting 5th.
All right. So we're
Michael
missing
Franco.
6th, 7th, and 8th.
You are missing 6, 7, and 8.
Mountcastle.
Ryan Mountcastle, batting 6th, playing first base.
Okay. And who was playing second base that day?
That's an excellent question.
2 years ago, who was playing second base?
Second base and right field are the last two.
Oh boy, this is predates Odor.
That's correct.
2 years ago, second base. God, I can't remember.
Well, this is not a good sign.
No.
All right, what can you give us?
I mean, let's see. He played for the A's, I think, right before the O's. No, he didn't. Never. He came from Colorado. Played in that 2020 season, and then he played 90 games in 2021. He played 4 seasons with Colorado.
Hang on. Now I got to think of the pandemic season.
Yeah.
Is it Pat Valleca?
It was Pat Valleca.
You know how I came up with that?
How'd
The
you-
only thing I remember from the pandemic season is the air high fives.
Right.
That's the only memory I have at all of the pandemic
Valleca.
season.
So we got the right fielder we got to
You
get?
got the right fielder you got to get.
Did we get the DH?
You get Trey Mancini was DHing.
Okay.
Yes.
So
Right fielder.
Sure, he was a great player.
Right
Is he
fielder.
somebody that had a career in the major leagues, or was a real cup of coffee
It was,
guy?
it was more a cup of coffee guy. He came up with the Orioles. and
DJ Stewart.
It was DJ Stewart.
DJ Stewart.
DJ Stewart.
DJ Stewart.
1 for 4. Had an RBI in this game.
What's DJ Stewart doing right now?
He is
He's with the Mets
Is he with
organization. I'm
Right.
not sure if he's on the major. I don't think he's on the major league squad.
That doesn't sound like he would be.
I like DJ. He's a good guy.
Buck
but-
Showalter must like him.
Yeah,
Bring him
clearly.
over.
Clearly the case. Or they were just trying to get all the guys.
Little too much swing and miss.
Yeah.
How,
a bit
how
too
Buck
much.
has Jimmy Yacobonis on that team?
Jimmy Yacobonis is
Yes,
on that team?
he pitched the other
He's
night.
on and Tommy Hunter.
Well, I knew Tommy Hunter
Hunter's
was there.
pitching very well. By
Is
the
he
way.
really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just see he's got a minor league deal with the Mets. I don't see where he is or what he's doing. Syracuse.
He was up for a little while
playing
early
11
in the
games.
season.
Okay. All right. Good for DJ Stewart.
AAA Syracuse.
He and weren't he and Hayden Hurst like best buddies? Wasn't there a story on that? Like that they grew up together, and like Hayden Hurst played baseball and he played football, and they kind of like flip flopped at some point. If I remember, I feel like there was a story to that. Not that it matters. Neither one of them's here, so who cares? All right, Tubular is brought to you today by your local Toyota dealer. Buyatoyota.com. The Toyota Tacoma comes in a range of models and trim lines, so you can choose the perfect Tacoma to reflect your unique personality and driving habits. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Tacomas from your local Toyota dealer today. All right, remember, it's a weird weekend for the Orioles. Tonight, 7:20 on Masson, Dean Kramer and Max Fried.
Excuse me for 1 second.
Yes.
The really very sad, sentimental news in baseball. Matt Harvey has retired.
I did see that.
Matt Harvey.
Very complicated figure, right? Like a very complicated figure in baseball history. Saturday, tomorrow night, 7:15 on Fox only. I don't think it's even in all the country because they also have Phillies Red Sox. But here
tonight
locally,
is Masson.
Tonight's Masson. Tomorrow night
night's
locally
Fox.
on Fox, Kyle Bradish and Spencer Strider. And then remember, Sunday morning, 11:30 a.m., NBC and Peacock, Tyler Wells and Bryce Elder, the pitching matchup.
Be
for
tough
that
getting
one.
up for that one because Aljo and Cejudo Saturday
Oh,
night.
right. Yeah, you got a
so it's gonna
busy.
be-
I got to be up at 5 on Sunday, so I will
Okay,
be.
good for you.
I might be napping at that point. It might be the way
What
that
you
it
got
goes.
going on
It's
Sunday?
my day to be at the Helping Up mission. I do that once a month, and so that happens to be on Sunday.
And you can't do that like from noon to 2 or something?
I do breakfast. I do Sunday morning breakfast at Helping Up. Then problem football season, I won't have that option, so it's just the way that it works out. That's okay. I'm happy. It's a sacrifice I'm happy to make to
And is that
support
the
them.
community service that the
No.
judge ordered?
Yeah. No, I had to do something else entirely for that, Stan. Tonight, CBS Sports Network, or this afternoon, Loyola Boston University at 4 as the Greyhounds try to keep their NCAA tournament hopes alive. They'd have to win 2 games this weekend in order to do it. But they did beat Navy surprisingly on Tuesday, so hopefully they can keep that going as they take on BU today at 4. Kentucky Oaks coverage at 1 o'clock on USA Network. ESPN's got Celtics Sixers game 3 tonight at 7:30. The Nuggets Suns game 3 at 10. TNT Devils Hurricanes game 2 at 8 o'clock. Tomorrow, Big Ten Lacrosse Championship, Maryland, Michigan, surprisingly, 5:30
is it?
from Homewood Field at Hopkins. Well, Michigan beat
trounced,
Maryland.
yeah.
Yeah, correct. So it's an opportunity. Maryland got their revenge on Hopkins. They'll now try to get their revenge on Michigan. 5:30 tomorrow on Big Ten Network from Homewood Field.
What was the score of the Maryland game?
Yesterday it was
14-9.
Yeah. They were trailing. They were down 3-0 early.
Yeah.
And then they
won like a 5-1 run in the second quarter.
Totally seized control of the game.
I forgot to tape it. I wanted to.
I had the Orioles.
Automatically, I think I taped all Maryland.
Well, that's good. So I had the Orioles game on here, and then the lacrosse game on my my iPad.
They have a big crowd for that game.
It was like 4,000 people for a Thursday, for a 3:00 Thursday afternoon game. Not too bad. It's a shame they didn't play it at night because they would have had a really good crowd at that point. Yeah. The Big Ten Women's Championship is tomorrow night on BTN. Maryland takes on Northwestern at 8:00. The Patriot League Women's Championship tomorrow on CBS Sports Network. Army against Loyola from Ridley Athletic Complex at 2. Towson will play for the CAA Women's Championship tomorrow at 12:30. They're at home at Tiger Field against Stony Brook. That's on Lacrosse TV. Stevenson plays for the MAC Commonwealth Championship tomorrow night at York on the GoMac Sports app. Kentucky Derby coverage starts at noon on NBC tomorrow. The post time is 6:57. Stan says
6:57.
Yeah, 6:57 exactly.
I think I'm going to wager on that
the Japanese horse, Dorma Sotogaki.
Yep.
Dorma Sotogaki, yeah. ABC tomorrow for Knicks Heat Game 3 at 3:30. Warriors Lakers Game 3 at 8:30. TNT Oilers Golden Knights Game 2 at 7. The fights tomorrow night: Canelo Alvarez and John Ryder on DAZN. Starts at 7, main events at 11, and then UFC 288, Aljamain Sterling against Henry Cejudo at 10 on ESPN Plus pay-per-view. Also on Sunday, the selection shows for college lacrosse, 9 o'clock for the women, 9:30 for the men on ESPNU. TNT for Nuggets Suns Game 4 at 8, ESPN Celtics Sixers Game 4 at 3:30, and then if Loyola were to make it to the Patriot League Championship, that'll be Sunday at noon on CBS Sports Network. Anything non-sports-wise? Bupkis, obviously.
Yeah, Bupkis came out yesterday.
Oh, okay.
New show on Apple TV. It's called Silo. It's based on a book apparently, and these people, they literally live in this silo, and they're not allowed outside.
Sounds like
any reason?
Sounds like a real winner.
Any reason why I should watch it, Griffin?
It's on Apple TV Plus, and it's
you're not really
to get
Tim
used
Robbins.
to the way your children are going to
when we
live
move
in
them out
40
to
years in silos. Yeah.
Tim Robbins is in it. So is Common and Rashida Jones.
I mean, I like these people. Don't get me wrong.
But they can't go outside, and they're like, "Why can't we
Tim
go
Robinson
outside?"
and Rashida? Is it a comedy then?
No, it's like a series.
Then why is it Tim Robinson and Rashida
No,
Jones?
Tim Robbins.
Oh, Tim Robbins.
Yes,
Okay,
not
very
Tim Robbins.
different.
That'd be cool if Tim Robinson is it. They should figure out a way to put him in.
Very different.
Of course, new episode of Citadel with directed by the Russo brothers.
Apparently costs $1 billion to make. Yeah.
$300 million for 6 episodes. Unbelievable.
Saturday Night Live will be hosted by Peter Davidson on Saturday nights.
Peter Davidson, yes, of course, because of the Taco Bell commercial.
Musical guest Lil Uzi Vert will be the musical guest.
Does he still have that stupid thing in his forehead?
I hope so.
Okay.
I think Kim Kardashian probably talked him into forcing his name being Peter.
Before they broke. Who's he with now? Do we know? It's probably going to change in 24
right
hours. I'm not going to bother to find out.
Sure, he'll have plenty of jokes about it tomorrow.
Yeah, I have no doubt that's the
find
case.
out.
Whatever. Anything else?
At the season finale, season 1 finale of Lucky Hank, no episode of Succession, no episode of Barry, and the MTV Movie and TV Awards, hosted by Drew Barrymore.
Not hosted by Drew Barrymore.
Oh, not hosted?
She is bailed because of the white writers' strike.
Oh.
In solidarity with the writers, she has decided not to host the.
That's what I was asking my friend who lives in Hollywood. I was like,
I was wondering
why didn't you? Yeah, right.
I had to deliver papers.
Don't you know how Andruw Jones feels about me?
I was like, do I need to stop watching TV to show solidarity with the writers?
Oh yeah, you might have to do that, Griffin. No more
TV. Bupkis, where is that?
Peacock.
Peacock.
This is on Peacock.
Okay, you told me that last week. That sounds like an interesting show.
Late night. James Gunn was supposed to be on late night. Obviously,
there's no late night.
Yeah, there's no late night. He was supposed to be.
I got to be honest with you. Are we sure they're doing Saturday Night Live?
Oh, that's a good point.
How are they doing that without writers? I mean, I guess the cast is just writing the whole show.
Yes. Let's see. Is Saturday?
But that seems a little shady for them to do that. Like, it seems like that's kind of crossing the picket line, doesn't it? I don't know, man.
Yeah.
That one's a dicey one. Because, like, Colin Jost is the lead writer for Saturday Night Live. Right. So is he really going to just go pretend like all of his brethren aren't on strike? That is a weird bit, man. Yeah. I don't know how I feel about
Guardians 3 is out today.
That's right.
So That's why James Gunn would have been on.
Mrs. Clark and I are trying to figure out a time to go see that this weekend, but it is not looking great. It might be a next week type of thing for us. Stan the Fan. Tomorrow morning you'll be on the Bat Around with the boys.
Yep.
Talking baseball there with you 10 to noon.
I'm not crossing a picket line.
No, you are good. We're not. None of us. Believe it or not, we don't have any writers. I know that's gonna be hard for people to believe given the quality of the content that we put out. We don't have any writers for this show, so we're okay. And then, of course, Monday you'll have the new show with
the new
Ross
format.
and
Ross
Luke.
and Luke and I will talk some baseball, MLB power rankings, and how the Orioles are doing.
Excellent.
Yeah, so no SNL. No SNL.
That's
so
I figured
Ana de Armas episode 2 weeks ago, or whatever, that is the de facto finale of the season. So Jennifer Coolidge and Kieran Culkin were supposed to host the next 2 weeks as well.
So Peter Davidson's just going to do it himself.
He just shows up. It's like when they would do those pandemic shows.
And not do written stuff.
Right. Like, hi, I'm Pete. You wanna ask some questions? It's a bummer because that sounded like it was going to be good, but that's the way it goes, man.
Yep.
Like, writers are on strike. I don't think they could do it. All right. Thank you as always, my friend. Great to see you at Stan the Fan.
Good to see you
on Twitter.
Good to see you, Griffin.
Good to see you, Stan.
For the last time.
we weren't going to tell him that. We're going to have that conversation after the show. Thanks also today to Andruw Jones, of course. Thanks to Darren O'Day. Thanks to Bo Smolka and to Jordan Geronimo, who you're about to hear from. We'll get them all up in the greatest hits section of the
Oh, my God, it's so good.
tab at glennclarkradio.com. On Monday's show, I do know that new Coppin State basketball coach Larry Stewart will join us. Of course, Coppin legend. They're having a press conference today, so he will join us on Monday to talk about that. And I'm sure
good hire, I think.
He deserved it for sure.
Yeah.
I think he deserved it. It is a difficult job, though, man. Difficult job. Yep. I'm sure we'll have somebody on to talk about the Kentucky Derby, whether it's a winning trainer or rider or the horse themselves.
Maybe the horse
right.
themselves.
I wouldn't mind that if it worked out
studio.
that way. Correct. Stop by. So, heck of a performance.
He could probably stop by by Thursday or Friday.
Yeah, be
when
in
he
town,
ships
right?
into town.
100%. I'd love that. Don't forget, you can get up to $1,000 in a deposit bonus match and a $50 free bet from DraftKings if you are betting the Kentucky Derby. Just go to PressBoxOnline.com/offers right now in order to claim that incentive. Thanks to everybody at PressBox, all of our great sponsors and partners, AJ Michaels, Glory Days Grill, Royal Farms, the Costas Inn, Hartford Community College, Birdland Sports, All-American Lacrosse, your local Toyota dealer, buyatoyota.com. Thanks to Griffin at Griffin_Bass. Follow us, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Glenn Clark Radio. Have a great weekend. Go Birds. Go area lacrosse teams. Duke sucks. We wrap up the week by chatting with incoming Maryland basketball transfer Jordan Geronimo right here on GCR. We're joined now here on GCR by a young man who's going to be headed to College Park next season to continue his collegiate basketball career. He's originally from Jersey. He's former Indiana forward and now a Terp, Jordan Geronimo, and he's with us here on the program. Jordan, it's Glenn in Baltimore. It's great to meet you, man. Thank you so much for taking a couple of minutes for us, and congratulations on being a Terp.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
How did this come about, right? Mm-hmm. Like, you decide, you go to Indiana, and you're pretty productive there for a little while. You make the decision that you want to go somewhere else. How did this connection happen that you ended up at Maryland?
Well, obviously, Maryland's a part of the Big Ten. We play in Maryland like almost 2 times a year.
Yep.
And I'm attracted to the style of play. I like the fast pace, up and down, and I see myself being productive and efficient in their system. So that's what kind of attracted me towards the program.
But who reached out? Like, where did the contact come from?
David Cox.
David Cox.
One that reached out. Coach David Cox. Yeah, he reached out to me when I was in the portal, and that's how we started contact.
Had you had any contact with him, like when he was at Rhode Island?
No, I haven't.
Wow. So this was just him taking a swing and saying, "Hey, man, we think you might be the guy that we're looking for."
Yeah. Something like that, I guess you could say. But they was like saying how how they've watched me play in the Big Ten. Obviously, we played them for a couple of years, and they said that they was always a fan of my game. So they kind of always had like an eye on me. They was talking about. So
awesome. And did you feel any of that? Like, knowing, as you bring up, that you had been going up against them, did you feel any of the same thing? Like, oh yeah, like once you heard the contact, you were like, this actually makes a lot of sense. I think I could fit in really well with them.
Yeah. Because Maryland wasn't, if I'm being honest, Maryland wasn't a school I was looking at as soon as I came out the portal. You know what I mean? But they reached out and I considered the option. I see what they had to offer, and it was a really good opportunity. So I kind of just ran from there.
Jordan Geronimo is with us here on GCR. He's coming to play basketball at Maryland next year. So, Jordan, both your parents were basketball players, correct?
Correct.
And I know your mom played at North Carolina. Did you talk at all with them when you were making this decision? I'm sure they were really involved the first time you made a decision, but as you were making this decision, did you talk at all with them about making the decision to come to Maryland?
Of course, I had a close relationship with my parents. Love them to death. So they was in my circle when I was making this decision. Yeah, so my mom was played basketball at UNC, so she kind of knows the game. She knows what's going on. So she was a big influence on, I guess, my choice.
Jordan, was basketball always like the path for you? Like growing up, did you always know, being the son of two basketball players, like this is what I was going to do?
Not really, but kind of not really. Because like I've always loved to compete. Like that's what it was for me. Like I love to compete, and it just happened that I'd be, I'm naturally athletic and I can play basketball.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
So,
were there other sports that you had played?
No, not really. I mean, I played soccer when I was growing up. That was the first sport I played, but that never got past 6th grade.
Did it just kind of come naturally to you?
Yeah, really what it was. I mean, when I was in high school, like I played for a really small school. I played 1 year AAU basketball, and then I kind of blew up from there. So like playing at a high level for me kind of came quick. You know what I mean?
I mean, obviously, it kind of came
Right.
quick. You don't end up in the Big Ten by accident.
Right. And so, basically, like, what I'm trying to say is, like, basketball, like, it's something that I do want to pursue. It is something that I love to do. But if I'm really getting down to, like, the base of it, of the core of it, you know what I mean? It's just I love to compete. And, and it's happens to be basketball. You know what I mean? So I love basketball. You know what I mean? That plus that equals that.
There you
know
go.
what I mean?
There you go. And here you are. Here you are. Jordan Geronimo with us here on GCR. Jordan, so walk me through. You make this decision to come to a new place. Obviously, I'm sure part of it is that you want to feel a new role, but just the entire decision to say, hey, I've got 1 year left. I want to be anywhere else, and what the goals are for you as you make this jump now to the University of Maryland.
Excuse me. Can you say that question again?
Yeah, just take me through why you made the decision at all in order to make the transfer at this point in your career, and then 2, what the goals are for you as you come to the University of Maryland.
So 1, I did want to transfer because I did want to be closer to home to finish out my collegiate career.
Okay.
I want to be closer to home. Like I said earlier, I went to high school in New Hampshire, you know what I mean? And I went to college in Indiana, and I live in New Jersey. So, it would be nice to finish that out near my hometown. And I know there's a train stop that goes to Maryland to like 10 minutes from my house. So that's amazing. But anyways, I just so I'm trying to really have the chance to develop or showcase my perimeter game over in Maryland, because this is the kind of play they run up and down, 4 out, 1 in, and they kind of play through their forwards kind of.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like being in that system where I'm kind of in that position to make plays is gonna help showcase my perimeter skills that I have, that I know I have, that I've been working on.
Is that something that you talked to the coaching staff about? Like they said, hey, we think there's going to be the opportunity for you to get a few more minutes here and to show people more of your all-around game.
Yes, that's something that they was talking about, and he was talking about also their development program, how they're gonna work with me to fit their to get everything right, and that's kind of just bought into the big idea. So,
Jordan, did you see, you referenced the style of play that Maryland had as you were watching them playing against them a year ago, but did you see maybe something else about the direction that this program was headed in and the amount of talent that was there and the feeling that, perhaps there's a real chance to make some sort of deep NCAA tournament run as you join this team?
Yeah, I mean, ever since, I got to Indiana, Maryland has gotten better and better each year I've gone there, you know what I mean? It's a growing program. They have great players, and, it's a great staff as well, you know what I mean? And it's really on the upside, and I'm excited to be a part of that as well. So
I mean, look, it looks like, obviously you guys got Jameer back and Dante back, and would have maybe been nice to add another guy from the Big Ten in the transfer portal, but that's the way it goes. Decisions are. I do have to. Did you even attempt to say, hey, do you want to send me Hunter's number? Maybe I send him a text, something like that. Did you even attempt to get involved in that, or did you leave all of that alone?
Nah, I don't know him that well, so
Okay.
I didn't do anything like that.
I understand. It is what it is, and you guys have a hell of a team nonetheless. So I don't think I'm going to be too worried about that. Jordan Geronimo, just with us here for another couple of minutes. Jordan, I'm fascinated, right, by making this decision. It would be easy for a lot of guys to say, hey, I'm coming to a new place, and this is the place that I'm going to be to try to finish out my career. I feel like you're coming here kind of wanting to would it be fair to say to prove something that maybe you didn't accomplish everything that you wanted to accomplish? Would it be fair to say that you've still got something to prove as you come to the University of Maryland?
It's easy to see it at that perspective in that kind of way, but the way I would say I just want a clean slate, really just a place where I can kind of have a new identity, you know what I mean?
Okay.
And if it's anything, something that I have to prove, it's something that I'm prove to myself, you know what I mean? Which is play to the level which I can play to, you know what I mean?
Yep.
But it's not, no kind of I'm out on a vengeance tour, you know what I mean? Revenge tour, whatever.
Right.
I'm just trying to go to a new spot where I can, grow, develop, and be the player I know I could be.
With that said, it is still rare. We were joking about Hunter a second ago, but it is still rare for guys to transfer from one school to another within the same conference. And
it is.
You said it's not a revenge tour type. Will it be? Will there be a little bit of a moment there when you go up against Indiana next season, and what will those emotions be like?
For sure. I was thinking about it when I was making the decision. You know what I mean? But I'm not gonna lie. When I was as a player at Indiana, I've always wondered what it was like to play, on the other side. You know what I mean? To play at Assembly Hall. So that's gonna be exciting. But I got all love for Origination. You know what I mean? But they was good to me. You know what I mean? Unfortunately, I'm going to a different university, different program. But it's going to be fun going back to Assembly Hall.
That's awesome. And again, I get it. You're not coming out saying no, I hate it there. I want to go beat them by 50. You're just saying it was a different place and a different opportunity for you, and I respect that. Jordan, what should we know about you? Tell me about. I know you're a smart guy. You were named academic All Big Ten before. But what should we know about you beyond basketball? What are you into? What are the goals for you moving forward? Give me a run through what Jordan Geronimo is all about away from hoops.
I'm an energy guy. I mean, I like to have fun. I'm always dancing. I'm always, busting a move. I'm always smiling, trying to crack a joke. Good vibes, you know what I mean? Hobbies outside of basketball. Normal stuff. I like to get on the game, play video games. But also recently, I picked up learning how to produce, make beats and stuff.
Okay.
So I'm kind of just in that. Yeah,
that's cool, man.
Just trying to mess with that. Yeah, how it goes.
Is that something that you want to continue doing? Do you feel like music is going to be part of your future?
Low key, I mean, not really. But I don't think about it too much. I just want to have fun with it and see how it goes. You know what I mean?
So do you just make beats or do you rap too?
No, I just make beats.
Okay.
I just be making beats. Yeah.
I was gonna say I think actually in the football facility at Maryland they have a recording studio, so which is it's a really cool thing, man. That's a really, really cool thing. Jordan, we can't wait to get to know you better. Looking forward to seeing you out on the floor this fall. Give me a rundown. Twitter, Instagram. Where can Maryland fans be giving you a follow?
Yeah, you can follow me on Instagram at Jordan Geronimo 22, and my Twitter account is jgeronimo 12, I believe.
All right, I'll double check on that, and if you're wrong, I'll make sure we tell everybody that's the case.
Right.
Hey, Jordan, congratulations, man. I think you're going to really enjoy it here, and I think there's going to be a really exciting season ahead. By the way, I think it's Jordan Geronimo 2 for the record is what we found. Jordan Geronimo 2. We can't wait to get to know you more as you get here. Congratulations on making this jump, and thanks so much for hanging out with us for a minute this morning.
Of course. Thank you for having me.